Chapter 1775. In the small spiritual world, the rich Hong Meng energy enveloped the entire world. Therefore, the Hong Meng aura in the small spiritual world was several times purer than the outside world. Long Chen and the other two flew at almost full speed for nearly 20 hours before they finally arrived at the north from the southernmost part of the small spiritual world. However, there was still a long way to go to the rumored extreme north, let alone the ancient battlefield in the extreme north. Along the way, Long Chen also saw many human gatherings in the air. However, these gatherings were too small, and there were only a few dozen people. Thinking that it was impossible to find any useful information here, Long Chen simply did not go there, and kept flying in the air. However, even an Iron Man would feel tired after such a long journey. In the small spiritual world, the sky gradually darkened. Although there was no distinction between day and night in the small spiritual world, there would still be a distinction between light and darkness every once in a while. This time, after such a long time of day, the small spiritual world finally ushered in night. In this case, Long Chen and the other two had to stop and rest. In a mountain range, the three of them sat around a burning fire. Long Yuan was responsible for adding some firewood to the fire from time to time, while Long Chen and Long Mu sat quietly by the side to cultivate. This period of time could be considered the most comfortable time that the three of them had experienced since entering the small spiritual world. It was much better than the tense and exciting cultivation and battle scenes in the past. Now, Long Chen's strength had completely stabilized in the Hong Meng Yuan Jie. There were even some signs of a breakthrough, but they were all suppressed by Long Chen. Accumulating strength was what Long Chen hoped for. Long Yuan had completely absorbed the power of the demonic dragon's inheritance. Now, his sharpness was even greater than Long Chen's. The brilliance of his atavistic physique was also gradually revealed. It was really much better than Long Chen's heavenly dragon physique. Long Mu's strength was constantly recovering. Although the improvement of his physical body was not great, the cultivation of his spirit and the realm of his strength were already close to his previous peak state. According to this situation, Long Mu's strength would soon be promoted to the Hong Meng Tianjing after the improvement of Long Mu's physical body. Therefore, the three of them had a certain degree of confidence, and they were all people who were able to take care of things themselves. Revenge for Long Meng Tianjing required such people to take care of things themselves. What Long Chen needed to do now was to find Jian Shisan and Zhu Ziyin as soon as possible. This way, the strength of the five of them would be enough to give Long Meng Tianjing hope. Suddenly, while the three of them were cultivating, Long Chen suddenly frowned. Soon, Long Mu and Long Yuan also sensed something. They hurriedly opened their eyes and released their consciousness in all directions, and began to investigate. Long Yuan was even more prepared to fight. The demonic dragon spear in his hand was already slightly emitting Hong Meng waves. As the flames flickered in the depths of the mountain range, which could be considered a canyon, a rustling sound could be heard. Three figures walked out with peaceful expressions. The one walking at the front was a muscular man with a very bright appearance. Following behind this man were two women who looked a little delicate. Both of their appearances and figures were extremely good. In this small spiritual world, there were very few women. Long Chen had been in the small spiritual world for so long, but he had only seen one person, Zhou Xiaoxiao. Now that he saw two of them at once, he was naturally surprised. Moreover, looking at the two women's appearances and figures, Long Chen couldn't sense the Hong Meng power around the two women at all. In addition to being surprised, he was even more puzzled. One of the two women was wearing a green robe, giving off an ethereal feeling. The other was wearing a blue dress, and there was a slight sense of discomfort between her eyebrows. At this moment, the person at the front came over and said in a clear voice, "Friends, the three of us are searching for opportunities in this mountain range. We never imagined that the sky would actually turn dark in this small spiritual world. The night is long. If we move rashly, we will probably provoke some primordial demon beast. Our strength is weak, so I wonder if we can rest here with you for a while. We will naturally leave when the sun rises. No. Long Mu looked at the three people for a while. There was a slight arrogance in his expression as he said calmly, "You can't. You." Upon hearing Long Mu's disdainful expression, the woman in green was immediately a little angry. It seemed that her previous requests for help had never been rejected. This time, she suddenly met someone who ignored her like Long Mu. Naturally, she was a little anxious and angry. However, before the woman in green could say anything, the muscular man in front of her quickly pulled her back. He whispered a few words in a low voice. Only then did the woman in green suppress her emotions. The woman in green coldly glared at Long Mu. The muscular man pulled her to the side with great difficulty. After that, the muscular man's expression was a little disappointed. However, he still took out some etiquette. The muscular man slightly cupped his fist to Long Mu and said, "Since you are unwilling to be disturbed by us, the three of us won't force you. Goodbye." After saying that, the muscular man turned and left. The woman in blue behind the muscular man was indeed unwilling to move. She took a few steps forward and slowly said to Long Mu, "This is my big brother. If the three of us didn't meet with some trouble, we definitely wouldn't have come to disturb you. However, please don't worry, the three of us definitely won't bring you any unnecessary trouble. We only saw that you are strong and wanted to spend the night in a crowded place." Long Mu's expression was still as calm as before. Long Mu was about to say something. Long Chen at the side laughed and hurriedly called out to the muscular man who turned to leave. In a clear voice, he said, "The three of you misunderstood. My friend's character is like this. Previously, he was just joking with you. This mountain is very lonely. It's lively to have another person to talk to." After saying that, Long Mu suddenly glared at Long Chen. Perhaps he was expressing his dissatisfaction. Long Chen naturally understood Long Mu's meaning. Previously, the matter with the mysterious tribe was not completely settled. If Long Chen really had the Hong Meng mark on his body, it was very likely that these three people came from that mysterious tribe. If that was the case, Long Chen had made the biggest mistake by keeping these three people by his side. Chapter 1776. After Long Chen finished speaking, the robust man looked at the smile on Long Chen's face and did not restrain himself. He found a spot next to the fire and the three of them rested. After the robust man sat down, he cupped his fists towards Long Chen and said in a clear voice, "Friend, I am Hua Zhan. These two are my younger sisters, Hua Lei and Hua Yan." As the robust man spoke, he reported the names of the green-clothed and blue-clothed girls. Without waiting for Long Chen to reply, Hua Zhan continued, "We come from a small tribe, the damaged flower tribe. We don't have much strength. This time, we have no choice but to rely on the three of you." Long Chen was not interested in Hua Zhan's words. Since he had already reported his tribe, Long Chen did not hesitate and quickly said, "I am Long Chen. These two are Long Mu and Long Yuan. We come from the Black Dragon tribe. It is not a big tribe. It is just a small tribe." This time, Long Chen used Long Yuan's tribe as a gateway. After all, he had to consider their surnames. If he said that they came from the Yen tribe, it would be confusing. In order to save unnecessary trouble, Long Chen said that it was the best. It was easy to understand. "So it is the Black Dragon tribe. I have heard of it. It seems that your Black Dragon tribe belongs to the Heavenly Dragon tribe. The Heavenly Dragon tribe is a branch of the Demonic Dragon tribe 10,000 years ago." Hua Zhan asked. Long Chen chuckled and said, "Brother Hua Zhan seems to know a little about our Black Dragon tribe. Even I only found out about this recently." Hua Zhan smiled and said, "You flatter me. It is just that some time ago, someone in the small spiritual world spread the news of the birth of a spirit treasure. It seems to be called the Heavenly Demon Dragon Spear. It is said that the heavenly demon dragon spear was the treasure of the demonic dragon tribe 10,000 years ago. Only those with the bloodline of the demonic dragon tribe could successfully control it. After hearing about it, the news of the demonic dragon tribe spread. So it is like this. Long Chen nodded and looked at Long Yuan. Long Yuan reacted quickly and immediately hid the spear in his hand. Looking at Hua Zhan's appearance, it did not seem like he had seen through Long Yuan's background. Could it be that this was really a coincidence? Now, Long Chen did not want to say anything. When he spread his mind and found out that Hua Zhan was only at the 9th level of the consolidation realm in Long's mind. There was an endless stream of strong and capable people. They would definitely not send these 3 people to find trouble with Long Chen. Long Chen was shocked because when he released his consciousness to investigate the strength of the 2 women, he encountered an extremely strong resistance that forcibly rebounded his consciousness. When he looked at the 2 women in the real world, he was surprised to see that the 2 women were actually very strong. In reality, he saw the 2 women in reality, as if they did not notice anything. He tried it several times in the dragon's intestine, but the 2 women were still the same. It was as if they could not detect his own strength at all. How could a normal person not notice his Hongmeng's abnormality? Moreover, his Hongmeng's strength was so strong. Why did he need to seek Long Chen's help? At this time, Long Chen was puzzled. Brother Hua Zhan, Miss Hua Lei said that you are in trouble at this time. If you don't know what the trouble is, why don't you tell us? Maybe the 3 of us can help. Long Chen said with a smile. Now, he wanted to fish for information to satisfy Long Chen's curiosity. Hearing this, Hua Zhan quickly looked at Hua Lei. After a while, Hua Zhan turned his head and laughed at Long Chen. Don't say that. It's a small matter. It's just that the 3 of us are a little tired tonight and are not good at dealing with it. Forget it. That's why we came to ask for Brother Long Chen's help. If you have any trouble, just say it. In this small spiritual world, there's nothing to talk about. You can rest assured. No matter how strong the cultivation method you have, how magical the spiritual treasure you have, we will not take it away from you. Long Mu said calmly. Hua Zhan was a little embarrassed. When he heard this. He exchanged glances with Hua Lei again before he said intermittently, To be honest, the 3 of us are being chased by a tribe called the Mountain Rock Tribe. Although the strength of the Mountain Rock Tribe's leader is about the same as mine, both of us are at the 9th level of the Hongmeng consolidation realm. We are helpless against their numbers. We are no match for them, so we could only flee into this mountain range. Who would have thought that the people from the Mountain Rock Tribe would chase after us as well? Fortunately, the sky is dark. Otherwise, I'm afraid that something would have happened to me and my 2 sisters. Why are they chasing after you? Long Mu frowned. As soon as he finished speaking, Hua Zhan's face turned ugly. It was obvious that he did not want to answer this question. Long Chen smiled and said, You said that the leader of the Mountain Rock Tribe is only at the consolidation realm of the Hongmeng consolidation realm. No matter how many people there are, with your 2 sisters, it shouldn't be difficult to deal with them, right? As soon as Long Chen finished speaking, the expressions of the 3 people beside the fire immediately froze. Hua Lei and Hua Yan looked at Long Chen in horror, while Hua Zhan looked a little guilty. Long Mu and Long Yuan looked at the 3 people's reactions and really did not understand why. Long Mu and Long Yuan did not release their consciousness to investigate the strength of the 3 people like Long Chen did. Naturally, they did not know the secret that Long Chen had discovered. After Hua Zhan's expression froze, it became stable. After he tried his best to put on a calm appearance, he slowly said, What did you see? Long Chen shook his head and said, To be honest, other than sensing that there is something unusual in your body, I don't know anything else. I also don't have that much interest. However, I just want to remind you that in this small spiritual world, an ordinary man is innocent, but a treasure will arouse the envy of others. If you obtain any great opportunity, you will naturally be attacked by others. Just like me, when I obtained an opportunity in the past, I couldn't wait to let everyone know. Now I only know that, now I hope that as few people know about it as possible. When Hua Lei heard this, she reacted slightly and said with some anger on her face, "Don't tell me you think that the three of us are here to cause trouble for you?" Long Chen chuckled and said, "Otherwise, in this small spirit world, it is the most unfriendly place. We don't want to cause trouble, but when we meet people like you who force your way in, we naturally have to be suspicious and be more cautious." Chapter 1777. Hua Lei frowned, and her expression changed. Beside her, Hua Yan, who had never said anything, was like a child who had done something wrong at this moment. He was actually a little timid. Hua Zhan said, "It's normal for the three of you to think that the three of us are bad people. Just as Brother Long Mu said, in the small spiritual world, it's really too infuriating. All kinds of unreasonable things happen all the time. It's like refining one's heart in the mortal world. If we didn't have a motive, the three of us would definitely not come in." Long Chen nodded and said, "Since the three of you also have your difficulties, you might as well tell us about it. Maybe we can help you, but it doesn't matter if you don't want to say it. After dawn, we will go our separate ways." "That's good." After listening to Long Chen's words, Hua Zhan and Hua Lei looked at each other. After a series of eye contact, Hua Zhan sighed to Long Chen and said slowly, "Even so, I don't think Brother Long Chen is a bad person. There's no harm in telling you." Long Chen was immediately full of expectations. Long Yuan and Long Mu also took a few steps toward Hua Zhan. Hua Zhan said slowly, "As I said before, the three of us entered this small spiritual world for a very different purpose from you guys. You just want to train in this small spiritual world for a period of time to improve your strength. The three of us entered the small spiritual world to look for something. If you want to explain this matter, I'm afraid you have to start from our tribe. As I've introduced to you before, we are from the Damaged Flower tribe. It's a small unknown tribe in the polar region of Hongmeng. However, the origin of our tribe is one of the top 10 tribes. It's one of the 10 most famous tribes, the Falling Flower tribe." Speaking of this, Hua Zhan's expression and demeanor became a little excited. Long Chen and the other two were calm. They had no impression of the Fallen Flower tribe that Hua Zhan mentioned. Seeing Long Chen and the other two's reactions, Hua Zhan felt a bit awkward. He continued, "The Fallen Flower tribe is extremely powerful, and our Damaged Flower tribe is only a very, very small branch of the Fallen Flower tribe. The power of our bloodline has been diluted too much, so the other tribes have forgotten our origins. However, because the Damaged Flower tribe was originally the Fallen Flower tribe, it was destined that the Damaged Flower tribe's bloodline would have the Fallen Flower tribe's bloodline. Even if it's just a tiny bit of bloodline power, it's enough to give birth to some extraordinary beings." Speaking of this, Hua Zhan looked at Hua Lei and Hua Yan. His expression was somewhat sorrowful as he said, "Ever since my two younger sisters were born, they had shown some unusual traits. The two of them were born with the strength of the consolidation realm in Hongmeng. This naturally didn't make sense. However, at that time, the elders of the Damaged Flower tribe treated my two younger sisters as treasures and nurtured them as the next generation of tribe leaders. These people only saw the talent in cultivation, but they didn't see the hardships of my two younger sisters' unique physique. Every noon, when the Yang Qi is at its peak, an extremely violent Hongmeng power will be born in the meridians of my two younger sisters. This kind of power will flow from the meridians to all parts of the body, to the point that it will make one's entire body feel as if it's being torn apart. This kind of pain is something that no words in this world can describe." Speaking of this, Hua Zhan's expression became somewhat sorrowful. Obviously, because of his two younger sisters, Hua Zhan had also suffered a lot over the years. For the past 20 years, every noon, my younger sisters would suffer this kind of pain. The elders of our tribe had also searched everywhere for a solution, but it was to no avail. This kind of thing was, after all, due to our two younger sisters' status. Because of their status, they couldn't do anything about it for a long time. The clan head and elders had no choice but to put this matter aside. As for my two pitiful sisters, they had to suffer for over 20 years. After listening to this description, Long Chen felt somewhat disappointed. He once again looked at Hua Lei and Hua Yen behind Hua Zhan. A hint of forbearance appeared in Long Chen's eyes. Long Chen turned around and looked at Long Mu. He wanted to find out from Long Mu if he could find a solution to this kind of physique that Hua Zhan had mentioned. Long Mu shook his head helplessly. He knew nothing about these two women's physique. Hua Zhan continued, "Not long ago, the chief of our damaged flower tribe went to the fallen flower tribe. Originally, he didn't plan on finding a way to solve the problem of my two sisters' physique. However, during that experience, the chief found that the fallen flower tribe's chief was in the fallen flower tribe. However, during the fallen flower tribe, the tribe leader learned of the true physiques of my two younger sisters from a dying elder of the tribe, as well as the method to balance this physique." Hearing this, Long Chen's eyes flashed. According to what Hua Zhan had said, there was a solution to Hua Lei and Hua Yan's physiques. In detail, the humans in the 9 extreme lands were able to reach the primordial convergence realm, which many people could not reach since birth. It could be considered a rather unique physique. And now, it seemed that these two women had the strength of Hong Meng Yuanjie. It seemed that when the Zhehong physique brought pain to their entire body, it also brought about a certain degree of strength increase at the same time. If it wasn't for the piercing pain in their meridians at noon, they would have already become influential figures in Hong Meng. What exactly happened? Long Yuan was also fascinated by the story and hurriedly urged. Hua Zhan nodded and said, "It's like this. It turns out that my two younger sisters were born with a rare physique that only appeared in our fallen flower tribe in the last 10,000 years. The dying elder called this physique the burial flower physique. I don't really understand the general meaning. The elder only told us that those who have the bloodline of the fallen flower tribe have an extremely low chance of awakening the power contained in this bloodline at birth. Thus, they are born with this unique physique. It is said that this burial flower physique is activated by some of the Hong Meng bloodline in the fallen flower tribe. It causes people to seal most of the yang qi in their body at birth, thus drawing out the yin qi. This is why my two younger sisters are born with the strength of Hong Meng consolidation realm. Their cultivation will also be many times more powerful than normal people. However, the disadvantage of this body of flower burial is that every noon, the sealed yang qi in the body will break through the obstruction and begin to attack the meridians in the two sisters' bodies. This is also the reason why the two sisters feel such pain. Chapter 1778. Long Mu was a little worried when he heard this. It was just like his heavenly dragon body and Long Yuan's ancestral body. It was likely that every large tribe had a special body in their bloodline. As for this so-called flower burial body, it was likely that the flower burial body would be different. The fallen flower tribe had a special body constitution. Although the fallen flower tribe was only a branch of the fallen flower tribe, the bloodline of the fallen flower tribe also contained a factor that could awaken the body of flower burial. Unfortunately, no matter if it was the fallen flower tribe or the broken flower tribe, because the body of burial flower had not appeared for tens of thousands of years, these people had forgotten about this matter. This caused Hua Lei and Hua Yen to suffer for so many years in vain. Bitter. Then, is there a way to solve this body of flower burial? Long Chen asked. Hua Zhan nodded and said, "The elder said that 10,000 years ago, the tribe leader of the fallen flower tribe had this body constitution. Thus, he showed great potential in cultivation when he was young. Before he was 20 years old, he successfully advanced to Hong Meng Tianjing. He could be considered the most talented person in the history of Hong Meng Polar region. At that time, the tribe leader also suffered from the yang qi at noon every day, causing a tearing sensation. At that time, the fallen flower tribe naturally had a way to deal with it. It turns out that the founder of the fallen flower tribe had the body of flower burial. When he discovered his special body constitution, he found a spiritual item that could balance the yin and yang qi in his body. This spiritual item later became the fallen flower tribe's symbol. This is the fallen flower divine jade of the fallen flower tribe that has been lost since 10,000 years ago. Lost since 10,000 years ago. Long Chen frowned slightly as if he thought of something. He quickly said, "Could it be that during the spiritual realm war 10,000 years ago, the tribe leader of the fallen flower tribe that you mentioned just now also came in and left?" Hua Zhan nodded and said, "That's what the elders told me. Because this is the only thing that can balance the yin and yang qi in the body and prevent people with the body of the burial flower from being attacked by the yang qi in the body, it was lost 10,000 years ago. That's why the falling flower tribe chose to forget about this physique. In these 10,000 years, there were people with the body of the burial flower, but because they didn't have the protection of the falling flower divine jade, they couldn't bear it anymore when they were around 25 years old. Controlling the surging yang energy in his body, he would die and his Tao would disappear. Because of this, no one in the fallen flower tribe knows about the body of the burial flower." After listening to Hua Zhan's narration, Long Chen felt some sympathy for him. Although the special physique of the falling flower tribe seemed strong, the harm was too great. The human body was regulated by yin and yang. Sealing the yang energy in one's body could indeed temporarily increase one's strength to a certain extent. However, this way, the sealed yang energy in one's body would constantly torment one's body. Moreover, one would not be able to completely return this yang energy back to one's body. They had to let the yang energy attack their body. Otherwise, their body would completely collapse due to the extreme imbalance of yin and yang energy. At that time, no matter how high their strength was, their body would be destroyed and there was nothing they could do. According to Hua Zhan, those people with the body of the burial flower, who died at the age of 25, because they didn't have the protection of the falling flower divine jade that could balance the yin and yang energy in the body. Even if the yang energy in the body gradually dissipated, they would be finished. All of them would be reduced to an extreme yin body, causing the yin and yang energy in the meridians to be unbalanced, and they would completely collapse and die. If this was the only way to solve the problem of the body of the burial flower, Long Chen naturally wouldn't stop them. It seems that the body of the burial flower is indeed quite troublesome. Long Mu squinted his eyes and slowly sighed. Hua Lei and Hua Yan's worries were also pointed out. The two of them couldn't help but feel sad. "Then did you guys find the falling flower divine jade?" Long Chen suddenly asked. Hua Zhan shook his head and said, "After all, it's an item from 10,000 years ago. It's extremely difficult to find it. During this period of time, we went to the ancient battlefield and the spiritual world ruins, but there was no news of the ancestor of the fallen flower tribe. The falling flower divine jade is in the hands of the ancestor. Perhaps the ancestor is already dead, but we really can't find the ancestor's corpse." Long Chen was also helpless. After all, Long Chen really couldn't help with this kind of matter. "Then why did you say that there was a transvestite from the Mountain Rock tribe chasing after you? What does the body of the burial flower have to do with it?" Long Chen was a bit puzzled. Hua Zhan said, "Brother Long Chen, there are some things you don't know. The Mountain Rock tribe is right next to our ruined flower tribe. Their Mountain Rock tribe relied on their own strength to have the ambition to devour our ruined flower tribe. However, due to the relationship between our ruined flower tribe and the fallen flower tribe, They didn't truly make a move. They would only occasionally come to disturb us. But for some reason, the Mountain Rock tribe actually knew the reason for my two sisters' special physiques. They also knew the reason why I came to the small spirit world. They were afraid that my two sisters would successfully find the falling flower divine jade. As their strength increased, the Mountain Rock tribe wanted to devour our ruined flower tribe. After Luo's ambition was crushed, the Mountain Rock tribe sent this group to follow us into the small spirit world. Their goal was to kill us again and achieve their goal. It has to be said that because of the Mountain Rock tribe, the three of us have been extremely torturous ever since we entered the small spirit world. On one hand, we have to constantly search for news of the falling flower divine jade. On the other hand, we have to do our best to avoid the Mountain Rock tribe. As for the Sure tribe's pursuit, after weighing the two sides, it's natural that neither side is perfect. You're at the 9th level of the Hong Meng consolidation realm, and your two sisters have the strength of the Hong Meng Yuan Jie. Why can't you deal with the Mountain Rock tribe? Could it be that there's an expert stronger than you two among them? Long Mu was a bit confused. He also tried to investigate the strength of the two girls. Naturally, he made a surprising discovery. Hua Zhan shook his head and said, "That was in the past. My sisters could still help me fight. Now, although their strength is the Hong Meng Yuan Jie on the surface, every time they use the Hong Meng in their body, they will suffer a piercing pain from the impact on their meridians. If they use more Hong Meng, the pain will be more obvious and they will be unable to fight." Chapter 1779. After separation, page 1/1, Long Chen understood what Hua Zhan meant. Due to the imbalance of yin and yang in Hua Lei and Hua Yan's bodies, whenever they moved the Hong Meng in their bodies, the yang in the clouds in their bodies would follow the movement of the Hong Meng to the various meridians in their bodies. This impact caused Hua Lei and Hua Yan to be unable to use their powerful strength even if they had it. You mean to say that the people from the Mountain Rock tribe have already chased after us? Long Chen asked. Hua Zhan shook his head and said, "I'm not sure. The three of us were discovered by the people from the Mountain Rock tribe when we were 10 miles away from this mountain range. We fled all the way here. We really don't know where the people from the Mountain Rock tribe have chased us to. After we entered this mountain range, the sky darkened. I think that the people from the Mountain Rock tribe should have left. However, my two sisters were still worried. Thus, they had no choice but to come and seek protection when they met the three of you." Looking at the apologetic expression on Hua Zhan's angular face, Long Chen felt a little sad when he saw Hua Lei and Hua Yan's timid sense of inferiority. The great battle 10,000 years ago took place in this small spiritual world. It was likely that the so-called falling flower divine jade had already been obtained by someone else. The purpose of Hua Zhan and the other two's trip was likely to be for naught. I hope that the three of you will be able to find the legendary falling flower god jade in the future. In that case, the two ladies will no longer be disturbed by this special talent. Long Chen spoke in a sincere manner. Hua Zhan also understood Long Chen's feelings. After nodding his head, he did not say anything else. Currently, the small spiritual world had been opened for nearly 4 months. This time, many places that had never been revealed before had been revealed. Because of this, if there was still no news of the falling flower divine jade at this time, it was likely that there would be no news in the future. There would not be any more news. Hua Zhan laughed bitterly and said, "Actually, we've discerned as well that it's very likely that we're not fated to obtain the falling flower divine jade. During these past few months, no matter if it's the spirit dimension ruins or the ancient battlefield, we've searched for a long time, yet were unable to find a single trace of it. However, I am not willing to let my two sisters leave me just like that. I heard that in a gathering place on the way to the ancient battlefield, there is a grand trade fair organized by one of the top 10 tribes. The purpose is to gather everyone here. It may be our last chance to exchange the spirit treasures we have obtained in the small spiritual world that we don't need. We have to give it a try no matter what. A trade fair? Long Chen muttered to himself. He had some plans in his mind. Perhaps this is a glimmer of hope. In normal trade fairs, people will take out their treasures to exchange for things they need. As you said, the falling flower divine jade can only maintain the balance of yin and yang in a person's body. In other words, even if someone else obtains the falling flower divine jade, it's of no practical use. If you're lucky enough, you might be able to see it, Long Mu said with a smile. I hope so. However, I heard that the trade fair is organized by one of the top 10 tribes, the Baiyang tribe. If you don't have any spirit treasures and your own strength is not enough, it's very difficult to enter the trade fair. Hua Zhan was a little hesitant. Long Chen nodded and said, Actually, it doesn't matter much. Anyway, you're only going there to find traces of the falling flower divine jade, not to snatch the spirit treasures. At that time, even if you can't go, you can find a few people who can go in to help. Ask them to look for the falling flower divine jade. It won't take long. If there really is the falling flower divine jade, I don't think anyone will be tempted. After all, they don't have a balance of yin and yang. If the falling flower divine jade appears, no one will be interested. You don't have to worry about anything else. After being enlightened, Hua Zhan felt relieved and said, After talking so much, Brother Long Chen, why don't you tell me about your story? In this way, in such a discussion, Long Chen also told Hua Zhan some of his own experiences. He told him that he needed to hurry up and find his lost disciple. He also told everyone about Long Yuan's background. The night was long. Just like that, the night passed. When the sky was already bright, Hua Zhan was the first to stand up and said, Brother Long Chen, it's fate that we met. If we meet again in the future, I hope you can still call me a friend. At this time, it's almost time to hurry up. Why don't we part ways now? I hope we'll meet again in the future. Long Chen didn't try to persuade him to stay. He guessed that Hua Zhan's eagerness to go to the gathering place was greater than anyone else's. After Hua Lei and Hua Yan smiled at Long Chen and the other two, they also left with Hua Zhan. After the three of them left, Long Chen slightly calmed down the Hong Meng power around him and tried to release his mind to investigate the situation of Hua Zhan and the other two. But before Long Chen could get a response, Long Mu suddenly frowned and said hurriedly, They are in trouble. What do you mean? Long Chen was also a little anxious. Maybe it's the people of the Mountain Rock tribe that Hua Zhan mentioned before. I only found out that the three of them had just left the mountain range and were surrounded by a group of people. It seems that it's very troublesome and they can't handle it at all. You mean we should go and help them? Long Chen asked with a smile. Long Mu shrugged his shoulders. It doesn't matter. It's up to you to decide. Overall, we're just strangers who met by chance. Long Chen laughed evilly and said, That's not necessarily true. If you met by chance, then after they left, would you still use your mind to investigate their whereabouts? Long Mu was immediately speechless and looked a little embarrassed. Long Chen hurriedly waved his hand and said, All right. Since we're acquainted with each other, then it's fate. Based on what Hua Zhan said, the Mountain Rock tribe is only a medium-level tribe, so the strength of the group leader is only at the primordial convergence realm. Long Yuan, you go first. Take a look, we'll be there soon. As soon as he finished speaking, Long Yuan nodded and immediately condensed the heavenly demon dragon spear. He went straight in the direction that Hua Zhan and the other two had left. It was obvious that Long Yuan was also quite anxious. We've been in the small spiritual world for so long. Most of the time, we've been chased and beaten by people who are stronger than us. Now that I've finally advanced to the Hong Meng Yuan Jia level, let me experience the pleasure of a tiger killing a pig. I also want to experience how satisfying it is to crush others in this realm. Long Chen stood up straight and the Hong Meng around him fluctuated faintly. Sogu's reading website. Chapter 1780. Boom! From time to time, a strong Hong Meng's power would explode in midair on a slightly flat mountain road, letting people know that something unusual was happening here. Looking towards the source of the Hong Meng's power, a figure seemed to have been hit by a very serious force and was sent flying out from midair. The surging Hong Meng's power surrounded him, forming layers and layers in the air. As the figure retreated, the Hong Meng's power between heaven and earth was mostly condensed. Bang! When the figure landed on the ground, a cloud of dust immediately splashed up. The figure who was hit on the ground spat out a mouthful of blood with a painful expression. As the figure landed, two clear and beautiful voices sounded one after another. "Brother!" The person who landed on the ground supported himself with his palms and stood up with difficulty. The two women who rushed to his side quickly supported him. These three people were Huazhan and the other two, who had just left Longchen. The current situation was really unexpected for Huazhan. Huazhan's expression was bitter. After coughing a few times, he said to Hualei, "Hualei, take your sister and leave quickly. I'll cover for you. Remember, no matter what, you have to go to the trade fair and try your luck." When Hualei and Huayan heard this, they became even more anxious. Looking at Huazhan's heavy injuries, the two women also became a little haggard. At this moment, the Hong Meng's power around Hualei seemed to fluctuate. It was this weak fluctuation that was immediately felt by Huazhan. Huazhan grabbed Hualei and shouted, "Do you want to die? I've said it before. Before we find the falling flower divine jade, you can't use the Hong Meng's power." "Brother!" Hualei pushed away Huazhan's hand and said with a painful expression, "For now, this is the only way. No matter what, I have to try. Even if all the yang energy enters my body, with my strength, it's enough to defeat these people from the food tribe." I said no means no. Huazhan's words were fierce as he resisted the Hong Meng's power that had condensed around him. At this moment, the other people in the mountain range, the group of people who had injured Huazhan to this extent, finally showed their faces. It's really a good show of affection between siblings. However, I've been tired of watching it for the past few months. I've spent so much time with you in this spirit realm ruins, and it's time to end it today. A total of 7 people appeared in Huazhan and Huazhan's eyes. Without any explanation, they surrounded the 3 people. "Shi Fei Yang, don't go too far. If my damaged flower tribe knows of what happened today, we will definitely notify the fallen flower tribe. At that time, your entire mountain rock tribe will suffer," Huazhan said fiercely as he looked at the leader of the 7 figures. "Io, I'm really scared when you say that." The person called Shi Fei Yang coldly shouted, "Actually, you can't blame us. If you want to blame someone, blame your 2 sisters for having such a strange body constitution. I've received accurate information that the auction you're going to will have the falling flower divine jade. If you really obtain the falling flower divine jade, based on what we've done to you over the past few months, you won't let us off easily. Therefore, the one who strikes first gains the upper hand, and the one who strikes last suffers. No matter what, none of you 3 siblings will survive today. After I deal with you, I'll go and obtain the falling flower divine jade. Then, I'll return to the polar regions of Hong Meng and think of a way to leak this information to the falling flower tribe. When the time comes, the falling flower tribe will definitely contact our mountain rock tribe. At that time, we'll use the Sea of Broken Flower tribe as a condition to exchange for the falling flower divine jade. After that, without the protection of the falling flower tribe, we'll just have to rely on the old, weak, sick, and disabled members of your damaged flower tribe. Humph! It's only a matter of time before we swallow you up." Shi Fei Yang had a mocking expression on his face, as if he had already done all this. "Shi Fei Yang, you'll die a horrible death," Huazhan said angrily. Although Hua Zhan and the other two's expressions suddenly quivered when Shi Feiyang mentioned that there would be a falling flower divine jade at the trade fair, before they could rejoice, they immediately felt a wave of grief and indignation when they heard Shi Feiyang's plan. Now, even though they knew that the falling flower divine jade would be available at the auction, given the current circumstances, it was really difficult for Hua Zhan and the other two to go to the auction. The people from the Mountain Rock tribe were all at the Hong Meng Consolidation Realm. Although only Shi Feiyang was at the 9th level of the Hong Meng Consolidation Realm like Hua Zhan was still weak. Although his two sisters possessed great power, Hua Zhan knew very well that if Hua Lei and Hua Yan once again used the Hong Meng power around them, the consequences would be unimaginable. Perhaps all of this had formed a closed loop that caused grief and indignation. If they didn't act, all three of them would die here. If they did, the person who chose to use the Hong Meng power around him would die here due to the imbalance of yin and yang in his body. Sacrificing one person to save the other two who had a fortuitous encounter. Although this seemed simple, the three siblings were very close. Naturally, they didn't want each other to die for them. They all wanted to be the ones who would seek death. Even though Hua Zhan was not as powerful as Hua Lei and Hua Yan's group, if Hua Zhan were to risk his life and use the Hong Meng energy that erupted from his life to delay the few people from the Mountain Rock tribe, Hua Lei and Hua Yan would indeed have a chance of survival. However, if that was the case, not only would Hua Zhan die, Hua Lei and Hua Yan would still be pursued by the Mountain Rock tribe. If the Mountain Rock tribe caught up with them before Hua Lei and Hua Yan arrived at the trade fair, the consequences could be easily imagined. Shi Feiyang was decisive. He didn't want to give Hua Zhan and the other two too much time to react. The instant his words left his mouth, he condensed the Hong Meng power around him. In the next instant, Shi Feiyang's body suddenly leaped into the air. A ferocious Hong Meng power suddenly condensed in front of him. After brewing for a while, it passed through the dense power and rushed towards Hua Zhan and the other two. When he saw Shi Feiyang's swift and fierce attack, Hua Zhan pushed aside Hua Lei and Hua Yan beside him. The Hong Meng power around his body roughly moved and condensed into a Hong Meng barrier around him. After taking 2 steps forward, he suddenly pushed forward. Boom! The surging Hong Meng power exploded in midair. Hua Zhan, who was already injured and had reacted hastily, naturally couldn't withstand such a heavy blow. Chapter 1781. However, when the Hong Meng wind from the collision gradually dissipated, Hua Zhan's body flew back a dozen steps before coming to a stop. Hua Zhan's originally pale and powerless expression became even weaker at this moment. The Hong Meng power around Hua Zhan's body began to fluctuate unstably, as if it was being controlled by something. The meridians in his body were in a mess. Because of this degree of interference, Hua Zhan probably didn't have the strength to attack anymore. In fact, when Hua Zhan first met Shi Feiyang and the others, Hua Zhan was the first to suffer the combined attack of Hua Zhan and the others, who had been lying in ambush. This caused Hua Zhan, who was at the 9th level of the Hong Meng Consolidation Realm, to be unable to display his full strength. After that, because Hua Lei and Hua Yan could not fight, Hua Zhan had to fight 1 against 7 and suffered many injuries. Now that he had exchanged a punch with Shi Feiyang, it was natural for him to feel the instability of the Hong Meng power in his body. Even though Hua Zhan was seriously injured, Shi Feiyang still had no intention of stopping. After the Hong Meng power around him stabilized, he once again condensed a ferocious force and rushed towards Hua Zhan without any explanation. "Brother!" Hua Lei paled in fright when she saw this scene. She could tell that Hua Zhan no longer had the strength to deal with Shi Feiyang's attack. If Hua Zhan still had to endure Shi Feiyang's punch, it was likely that he would die here. At this moment, Hua Lei could no longer control the Hong Meng power in her body. At this moment, even if the yin and yang imbalance caused her body to explode and die, it did not matter. Her brother was the most important thing. Hua Lei's body suddenly released a fierce Hong Meng power. Her entire person had also entered an extremely crazy state. Compared to the Hong Meng consolidation realm, the Hong Meng power was several times denser. The barrier of the domain power also condensed in front of Hua Zhan in an instant. No! Hua Zhen cried out in pain when she saw that Hua Lei had already released the Hong Meng power in her body. Even though she knew it was too late for the guards, Hua Zhen still cried out in pain. He remembered that the last time Hua Lei released the Hong Meng energy around her body, it was because of the extreme imbalance between the yin and yang energy. After releasing the power of the Hong Meng Yuan Jie, she immediately fell into a deep coma. No matter how Hua Zhan shouted, she would not wake up. At that time, it was all thanks to the help of the dying elder of the fallen flower tribe that Hua Lei was able to escape from danger. It was precisely because of this that the dying elder had warned Hua Lei that before she found the Luo Hua divine jade, she could not use the Hong Meng power in her body no matter what. Otherwise, she would die. But now, if Hua Lei didn't use the Hong Meng power in her body, Hua Zhan would die in front of her. This was naturally what Hua Lei didn't want to see. At the same time, Hua Yan, who was beside Hua Lei, also had the same idea. Although her situation was slightly better than Hua Lei's, when she used the Hong Meng power in her body, she would completely lose consciousness due to the imbalance between the yin and yang energy in her body. In this small spiritual world, if she fell into a deep coma, it would be impossible to find a dying elder of the fallen flower tribe. Hua Lei released the Hong Meng power. It was the unique representative of the Hong Meng Yuan Jie. In the blink of an eye, the domain had enveloped Hua Zhan. When Shi Feiyang's fierce Hong Meng power bombarded Hua Zhan, it was firmly blocked by the domain. No matter what, a Hong Meng consolidation realm expert could not break the domain condensed by a Hong Meng Yuan Jie expert, unless he had a trump card like Long Chen. However, even for someone like Long Chen, he had exhausted an enormous amount of effort in order to accomplish this magnificent feat now, just by relying on the seemingly casual Hong Meng power that Shi Feiyang had condensed, he would naturally hit a wall in front of the domain. The power of the domain completely blocked Shi Feiyang's Hong Meng power. With a muffled sound, Shi Feiyang's entire body was sent flying by the rebound of the Hong Meng power in his hand. If it wasn't for the help of his companion, Shi Feiyang would have landed heavily on the ground like Hua Zhan. Hua Zhan looked at Hua Lei, who had completely condensed the Hong Meng power, and his expression turned ferocious. But now everything was useless. When Hua Lei finished activating the Hong Meng power in her body, the hidden yang energy in her body would take the opportunity to enter her body and attack her meridians. There was a high possibility that Hua Lei would die because of this attack. Shi Feiyang caught his breath and looked at the domain that had condensed in front of him. He couldn't help but laugh and said, "Is this the Hong Meng Yuan Jie's domain? It is indeed incomparably powerful. However, this level of strength is really a waste on you. I think it won't be long before you die. But thinking about it, it's worth it. You flaunted your power for a moment and gave up your life. Haha, do you think that you can protect your brother for a lifetime just because you can protect him for a while? Little girl, let me tell you. After you die, your brother and this little sister, who has the same constitution as you, will die in this small spiritual world. It's impossible for you to obtain the falling flower god jade." As his words fell, Shi Feiyang exchanged glances with the people beside him. Then, the 7 people from the Mountain Rock tribe attacked at the same time. Every one of them emitted a fierce Hong Meng aura. Without any preparation, they separated. Just as they had discussed before, every 2 of them charged towards one of the 3 people. Shi Feiyang didn't move from his original spot. However, the Hong Meng power that was constantly fluctuating around him naturally didn't allow him to let down his guard. In this space, the violent Hong Meng fluctuations immediately caused the atmosphere to become extremely solemn. Although Hua Lei had the strength of the Hong Meng Yuan Jie, because she rarely used the Hong Meng power around her, she naturally didn't learn any of the Hong Meng technique. She didn't know how to fight or defend. The only thing she knew was to raise her strength to the level of the Hong Meng Yuan Jie. After condensing her domain, she could only resign herself to fate when faced with the combined attacks of the 7 people in front of her. At this moment, Hua Zhan was enveloped by Hua Lei's domain. Even if he knew how to fight, he couldn't do anything. After all, if Hua Lei didn't take the initiative to release him, he couldn't escape from this domain. Chapter 1782. Rumbling Hong Meng explosions continuously sounded in midair. Under the indiscriminate bombardment of Shi Fei Yang and the other members of the Mountain Rock tribe, the Hong Meng barrier around Hua Lei was gradually eroded. Very quickly, the Hong Meng barrier that was hastily formed by the Hong Meng force showed signs of collapsing. Without a corresponding Hong Meng technique as a defensive measure, even though the opponent's strength was far lower than hers, and even though she was a Hong Meng Yuan Jie expert who possessed a domain, she still had to suffer such an unbearable heavy blow at this very moment. Finally, the members of the Mountain Rock tribe completely destroyed the Hong Meng force in front of Hua Lei. In the next instant, Shi Fei Yang, who had been standing on the ground without moving, immediately leaped up. Around his body, a wave of sharp Hong Meng force instantly burst forth and directly charged towards Hua Lei, who no longer had any defensive power. Hua Zhan had shouted until his throat was hoarse within the domain. However, at this very moment it was clearly useless. Hua Lei had never seen such a soul-stirring attack. Before Hua Lei could react to this Hong Meng force, Shi Fei Yang's entire body was wrapped in a cluster of shocking Hong Meng force and arrived 10 feet in front of her. In the next instant, Hua Lei would be heavily struck by this ferocious and overbearing Hong Meng force. At the very least, she would end up with most of the meridians in her body destroyed. Swoosh swoosh. However, what everyone in the Mountain Rock tribe did not expect was that just as Shi Fei Yang's Hong Meng force was about to bombard Hua Lei's body, a world-shaking Hong Meng whistling sound directly exploded in midair. Before everyone could look towards the source of the sound, there was already a disdainful-looking figure rushing over from the distance. Without any explanation, he directly landed in front of Hua Lei. At the same time, the moment this figure landed, a wave of cold light suddenly floated around him. This wave of cold light also instantly turned into a solid barrier that firmly stood on the ground. It stood erect in the direction of Shi Fei Yang's Hong Meng force. Clang! Shi Fei Yang's seemingly ferocious Hong Meng force heavily bombarded this barrier. The berserk Hong Meng force contained within immediately exploded in midair for a good while. Following this, the Hong Meng force contained within it poured onto this barrier like a storm. However, no matter how strong this Hong Meng force was, the barrier erected in front of this Hong force did not the slightest bit from the beginning to the end. At this very moment, this barrier had undoubtedly become the most solid backing for Hua Lei and the person who suddenly appeared in front of her. After the Hong Meng force contained within it completely tilted, it began to gradually dissipate. At this moment, a wave of dazzling green light was emitted from the barrier that the Hong Meng force had just bombarded, immediately lighting up the entire area. Hua Lei finally opened her eyes. She also finally saw the solid figure in front of her clearly. In Hua Lei's eyes, green light flickered in front of the figure, as if it was the most beautiful primordial mist in the world. Although the figure did not look very strong, Hua Lei could clearly feel that the short period of time after she entered the small spiritual realm was the most stable time she had ever felt since she entered the small spiritual realm. It was as if with this figure's protection, no matter what Hua Lei wanted to do, there would be no obstruction. If it was in the past, Hua Lei would always feel that this person was her brother Hua Zhan. However, after the previous incident, When Hua Lei personally saw her brother Hua Zhan being bullied by those people from the Mountain Rock tribe and had no choice but to step forward to resolve the matter, the barrier in Hua Lei's heart completely disappeared. The green light gradually dissipated. When Shifei Yang's Hongmeng force had completely dissipated, the figure in front of Hua Lei naturally knew that there was no danger for the time being. He hurriedly turned around and smiled at Hua Lei, asking, "Are you all right?" Hua Lei was stunned. Her eyes were filled with a complicated emotion as she softly asked, Long Yuan?" It had only been 2 hours since they parted ways with Long Chen and the rest. Hua Lei could naturally still remember when they were sitting around Long Chen and the rest. Although Long Yuan did not speak much, his expression was incomparably resolute. Long Yuan had received instructions from Long Chen to come and help first. Long Yuan naturally looked forward to it. Although Long Yuan had arrived a little late, it was not too late. Long Yuan nodded and said, "Master sensed that you were in danger and asked me to come and help you." "Thank you," Hua Lei softly said. Long Yuan chuckled. Looking at Hua Lei's delicate appearance, he could not help but scratch his head. It was at this moment that Hua Lei frowned after thanking Yong Yong. Long Yuan was naturally not stupid. When they were in the mountains, although Long Yuan was beside her, he also understood Hua Lei's special body constitution. Thinking that before he came, Hua Lei had already activated her Hongmeng force. At this time, the yang energy in her body must be impacting. He had to act quickly. Long Yuan suddenly remembered that when he and Long Chen were wantonly plundering the elixirs in the Xianyan tribe, they had encountered many elixirs that were related to balancing the yin and yang energy in the body. Long Yuan quickly took them out. At this moment, he did not care whether these elixirs were useful or not. He immediately placed them in his palm and refined them. He held Hua Lei's hand and at the same time, he followed Hua Lei's weak breath and slowly transferred the elixir into Hua Lei's body. Hua Lei's face showed a violent imbalance of qi and blood. It was obvious that the imbalance of the yin and yang energy in her body would indeed cause a great reaction. Although Hua Lei was holding Long Yuan's hand, the pain that came from her meridians still made Hua Lei unable to help but squat on the ground. Waves of unstable Hongmeng force suddenly burst out from her body. Long Yuan could only sense that the elixir in Long Yuan's hand could help balance the yin and yang energy in her body. However, Long Yuan did not have any confidence that it would be useful for Hua Lei at this moment. At this moment, Long Yuan could only hope that a miracle would happen. He hoped that the elixir in his hand could really help Hua Lei overcome this difficult situation. Long Yuan refined the elixir in Long Yuan's hand, accompanied by waves of pure Hongmeng force, and then Hua Lei absorbed it into her body. Although the process was complicated and the effect of the elixir was greatly wasted because of this process, Long Yuan could only do this at this moment. Chapter 1783. Although Long Yuan had seen many miracles during this period of time, Long Yuan did not know why, but at this moment, he had no recollection of those things. Now, Long Yuan's only thought was to restore Hua Lei to her original state. As more and more of the elixir's medicinal power entered Hua Lei's body, the painful expression on Hua Lei's face, caused by the yang energy attacking her meridians, was actually slowly fading away, just as Long Yuan had expected. In other words, this stock of spiritual medicine from the Dragon Abyss was really effective. Long Yuan could not help but be overjoyed. He immediately increased the refining speed of the elixir in his hand. Gradually, in less than 10 breaths' time, the painful Hua Lei finally returned to her original state, as if she had not used the Hongmeng around her body previously. At this moment, the domain that Hua Lei had formed previously also gradually dissipated due to the instability of the Hongmeng around her body. Hua Zhan, who was trapped in Hua Lei's domain, immediately ran over. After seeing the people from the Mountain Rock tribe temporarily retreat, Hua Yen also followed Hua Zhan's footsteps and came to Hua Lei's side. Hua Zhan looked at Hua Lei, whose Hong Meng energy was gradually stabilizing around her body. After a moment of panic, shock floated in his eyes. Looking at Long Yuan, who was slowly transferring the power of the elixir to Hua Lei, Hua Zhan hurriedly said, "Brother Long Yuan, why are you this? What is this situation?" Long Yuan frowned slightly and slowly said, "Master sensed that you were in danger and asked me to help you. The yin and yang energy around Miss Hua Lei's body is out of balance. Coincidentally, I obtained an elixir previously. The medicinal power of the elixir can help Miss Hua Lei balance the yin and yang energy around her body. Naturally, it can help Miss Hua Lei to overcome this difficult situation." Hearing this, Hua Zhan suddenly let out a long breath. It was naturally the best that the things that he had previously thought of did not happen. "What elixir is this? Where can I obtain it?" Hua Zhan continued to ask. From his point of view, since this elixir could help Hua Lei overcome today's difficult situation, perhaps this elixir would also have an extremely strong effect on Hua Lei's body. Long Yuan shook his head and said, "I obtained this elixir by chance. I don't even know its name. Based on the medicinal power that it emitted, I know that it can balance the yin and yang energy. Moreover, this elixir is also probably extremely, and it is not easy to obtain it." Hearing this, Hua Zhan's expression, which originally had some anticipation, became desolate once again. At this moment Long Chen and long after seeing what had happened. Of what had happened translation was Long Chen was translation. Seeing what had happened is translation. Translation is Hua translation. Brother Hua Zhan, this elixir is probably only able to balance the yin and yang energy a little. At this moment, it is only effective for Miss Hua Lei. Even if this elixir can last for a long time, it is still a temporary solution. We still need to find the falling flower divine jade that you mentioned before. This is the only long-term solution. Long Chen said with a solemn expression. Hua Zhan quickly stood up and said with an emotional face, "Brother Long Chen, thank you for saving my life this time." Long Chen smiled and said, "These are not important. What is Miss Hua Lei's situation now is the most important thing." Hua Zhan quickly surrounded Hua Lei's body with his Hong Meng power. After a while, Hua Zhan's expression became much more relaxed. He said, "I can feel that with this medicinal power, Sister's aura has become much more stable. Thinking about it, the effects of this medicinal power cannot be ignored." After he finished speaking, the elixir in Long Yuan's hand was completely refined. All the medicinal power in this elixir was poured into Hua Lei's body. Hua Lei's expression finally became much more relaxed. The yang energy in her body had also become much more stable. After a while, Hua Lei opened her eyes. Although her expression was extremely weak, everyone could see that Hua Lei did not use her Hong Meng power like Hua Zhan had previously said. She did not fall to a dead end. No matter what, this was a good thing. Hua Yin helped Hua Lei up. Hua Zhan's expression was emotional. When the matters here were more or less settled, the people of the Mountain Rock tribe also unyieldingly stood up after a discussion. Shi Fei Yang looked at Long Chen and the rest who suddenly came to visit and coldly shouted, "Who are you people? Why have you come to disturb the matters of our Mountain Rock tribe?" From these words, one could sense that Shi Fei Yang was probing. It was likely that Shi Fei Yang could not see through the strength of Long Chen and the other two and did not dare to be too arrogant. When Long Chen heard these words, he took a step forward and said with a smile, "Your Mountain Rock tribe is bullying 3 people with 7 people. This is a little unreasonable, right?" Shi Fei Yang furrowed his brows and said, "Friend, these 3 people are from the Damaged Flower tribe. The Damaged Flower tribe and my Mountain Rock tribe have a grudge. Now that our 2 tribes are dealing with some matters, I don't think you need to intervene, right?" Long Chen's expression was as calm as an ancient well. His eyebrows twitched as he said, "Mountain Rock tribe. Forgive me for being ignorant, But may I know which large tribe in Hong Meng's polar regions is the Mountain Rock tribe? When he heard these words, Shi Fei Yang involuntarily clenched his fists and said sternly, "You don't need to laugh at my Mountain Rock tribe. To tell you the truth, my Mountain Rock tribe is from the same tribe as one of the 10 great tribes, the Rock tribe. Although my Mountain Rock tribe is only a medium-sized tribe, I don't know if you can afford to offend us." Huazhan hurriedly moved to Long Chen's side and said, "Brother Long Chen, what he said is true. The Mountain Rock tribe was once a branch of the Rock tribe a few hundred years ago. Although the two tribes have not contacted each other for a long time, it is true that they are from the same tribe. Moreover, I heard that Shi Fei Yang really did contact the Rock tribe not long after he entered the small spiritual world. Therefore, the matter of the Rock tribe standing behind them is also true." From Huazhan's point of view, the fact that Hua Lei was able to escape with her life and obtain a chance of survival with the help of Long Yuan's elixir was already very fortunate. If there were more, it would be somewhat troublesome for them. Moreover, these matters had nothing to do with Long Chen. Long Chen smiled at Huazhan and said, "Don't worry, I can deal with these people. Even if the people from the Rock tribe come, I can still deal with them. You, Long Chen, you must not be impulsive. After all, this is my personal matter. There is no need for you to risk your life." Huazhan looked flustered. This was not surprising. If Huazhan knew about Long Chen's previous actions, he would not be so surprised at this moment. Chapter 1784. Long Chen smiled and said, "Trust me, everything will be fine. If we don't get rid of the people from the Mountain Rock tribe today, I believe that you will cause trouble for them in the future. If you ask me, it's better to do it cleanly so that you won't have to worry about anything in the future." When Long Chen said this, his voice was slightly louder. Shi Fei Yang, who was in the distance, heard it clearly. As soon as he finished speaking, Shi Fei Yang's expression immediately turned ferocious. "You don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. So what if your strength is that of a Hong Meng Yuan Jie? Don't think that you can be bullied just because the few of us are Hong Meng consolidation stage experts." Long Chen nodded and said, "Now that you've said it, I really want to bully you." When he heard this, Shi Fei Yang could no longer hold back his anger. He immediately whispered to his companions beside him and began to gather Hong Meng energy around him. Long Chen slightly eased the aura around his body. He turned to look at Long Mu and said, "There are 7 of them and 2 of us. Is that enough?" Long Mu nodded helplessly. He thought to himself, "I'm already enough." Long Chen smiled at Huazhan beside him. Then, a vigorous Hong Meng aura suddenly burst out from his body. After exchanging glances with Long Mu, the 2 of them charged toward the 7 people from the Mountain Rock tribe. The moment Long Chen's figure charged forward, the murderous aura around him spread throughout the entire space. For so long, every battle that Long Chen had experienced was a battle where he challenged those of a higher cultivation level. Although he won every time, it took a lot of effort and energy. After every battle, Long Chen's remaining energy was almost insufficient to keep Long Chen awake. This time, the situation was indeed different. The opponents that Long Chen and Long Mu were about to face were only 7 people from Hong Meng's consolidation stage. After Long Chen advanced to the Hong Meng Yuan Jie, he naturally understood the huge gap between the Hong Meng Yuan Jie and the Hong Meng consolidation stage. Therefore, this battle was really just a small skirmish in Long Chen's eyes. Originally, Long Chen only needed 1 person. After forming his domain, he would be able to kill all 7 of them together. However, that would be too boring. Hence, Long Chen decided to bring Long Mu along. The 2 of them would fight against the 7 of them. He did not need to use his domain. Instead, he wanted to rely on his pure Hong Meng power to completely defeat the Mountain Rock tribe. Huazhan looked at the 2 people who rushed out like a hurricane. A trace of helplessness immediately appeared on his face. In his opinion, although it was possible for 2 people to fight against 7 people, the possibility was too low. No matter what, Hua Zhan did not want this to happen. Long Yuan smiled and said in relief, "Don't worry. Master and Long Mu are both Hong Meng Yuan Jie. Dealing with these people is really easy." Hong Meng Yuan Jie. Hearing this, Hua Zhan immediately exclaimed. Looking at Long Yuan's serious expression, Hua Zhan knew that Long Yuan was definitely not lying to him. When he thought of Long Chen's arrogant character, Hua Zhan's expression froze. They were actually experts from Hong Meng Yuan Jie? Moreover, they were willing to help him? At this moment, Hua Zhan was indeed a little stunned. On the other hand, when Long Chen and Long Mu were about to come into contact with the people from the Mountain Rock tribe, Long Chen completely released the power of Hong Meng that he had condensed. A red fire dragon shadow immediately condensed in front of Long Chen. With the addition of the fire dragon's illusory figure, Long Chen's expression changed from its previous calm to a ferocious one. At this moment, Long Mu also condensed his power of Hong Meng. Immediately, a vast aura of Hong Meng burst forth in the air. In just a few breaths, this aura of Hong Meng suppressed the heavens and the earth. Feeling the pressure of Hong Meng released by Long Mu, Hua Zhan's originally dazed expression changed to one of amazement. At this moment, he could not understand why the experts from Hong Meng Yuan Jie would come back to help him, a stranger they had met by chance. After knowing Long Chen's true strength, Hua Zhan also understood why Long Chen had spoken so arrogantly to the people from the Mountain Rock tribe. Originally, Hua Zhan thought that with his strength at the 9th level of the Hong Meng consolidation realm, he was close to being a monstrous genius without the support of a special constitution. However, when he saw that Long Chen, who was about the same age as him, was actually an expert from Hong Meng Yuan Jie, Hua Zhan could not help but sigh at the impermanence of the world. Hong Meng Yuan Jie? So what? Looking at Long Chen and Long Mu charging towards them, Shi Fei Yang's eyes flashed with a trace of coldness. At this moment, the power of Hong Meng that had condensed around him was also released. In Shi Fei Yang's opinion, since these 2 primordial origin realm experts hadn't utilized their domains and actually dared to rely on primordial energy to fight the 7 of them, then they were bound to have the strength to fight them, and it was even to the extent that they had a chance to win. Even if they lost, as long as they wanted to leave without the hindrance of their domains, no one would be able to stop them. That was why Shi Fei Yang was so arrogant at this moment. "Let's attack together and kill them." As soon as Shi Fei Yang finished speaking, the 6 figures beside him dashed out in all directions one after another. As they dashed out, waves of Hong Meng's explosive power resounded in the air. Long Chen couldn't help but feel a little surprised when he saw the movements of these people from the Mountain Rock tribe. Although these 7 people appeared to be using their own attacking methods, if one were to observe carefully, one would be able to detect that within these Hong Meng people's attacking methods, each of their methods were intertwined with the other's methods. In other words, these people weren't acting alone. Instead, they were faintly displaying a formation. The power of this formation, when displayed by these Hong Meng consolidation realm experts, was indeed comparable to the strength of a Hong Meng Yuan Jie expert. From the looks of it, Shi Fei Yang's arrogant and domineering words from before weren't wrong. If an ordinary Hong Meng Yuan Jie expert were to fight against these 7 people, the outcome would be difficult to predict. However, Long Chen was naturally not an ordinary Hong Meng Yuan Jie expert. Although this formation appeared to be very powerful on the surface, Long Chen felt that if he was strong enough, no matter how mysterious the formation was, it wouldn't be able to withstand it. Chapter 1785. The powerful Hong Meng force swept towards Long Chen in an instant. Even though the people from the Mountain Rock tribe were only at the Hong Meng consolidation stage, when Long Chen felt the force contained within the Hong Meng force, he suddenly felt that he had underestimated his opponent. However, this was not a big problem. Long Chen believed that he could even defeat an opponent like Feng Qingyang, let alone Shi Fei Yang. In the space 10 feet in front of Long Chen, dust danced wildly, causing the air to tremble and explode. Then, the heavy pressure of Hong Meng whizzed down. Before Long Chen could react, a bright light directly bombarded Long Chen from the side. Without any fancy moves, it completely shattered the attack of the Mountain Rock tribe after a head-on collision. The source of this light was Long Chen and Long Mu, who had rushed over together. Long Mu's sudden attack this time was without any fancy moves. It was purely an attack of Hong Meng force, yet it easily broke the combined attack of the 7 people from the Mountain Rock tribe. As the light dissipated, Long Mu's indomitable figure carried the boundless Hong Meng force in the air and was about to approach the formation formed by the 7 people from the Mountain Rock tribe. The 7 people from the Mountain Rock tribe were shocked by Long Mu's strength when their combined attack was so easily broken. However, under Shi Fei Yang's organization, the 7 people did not panic. Very quickly, the 7 people once again formed a Hong Meng force in a fixed position, preparing for the next attack. It could be said that although the strength of each person from the Mountain Rock tribe was not enough to make Long Chen and Long Mu feel fear, their formation was indeed mysterious. Boom! The Hong Meng force around Long Mu's body burst violently. Immediately, a solemn expression appeared on his determined face. Several rays of light vibrated out from his body, continuously attacking the Hong Meng force. This could be explained by the dense killing intent contained within. When the attack was launched, the Hong Meng force directly fluctuated in midair. Long Mu's figure suddenly leapt up. In an extremely tricky way, his entire body appeared in front of one of the people from the Mountain Rock tribe like a ghost. Although the 7 people from the Mountain Rock tribe had formed a formation together, there was still a distance of a few feet between them. It was only at this distance that Long Mu was able to see the flaw in the formation. Indeed, when the 7 Hong Meng consolidation stage people combined their attacks and formed a formation, their attacks would be extremely powerful. However, this kind of formation was ultimately only effective in terms of attack. In terms of defense, Long Mu, whose strength far exceeded any of them, could rely on his speed to arrive within the formation in an instant. He could even directly appear in front of a person like Long Mu. Most of the people who formed the formation used their Hong Meng power to channel their Hong Meng power. Naturally, they had no time to pay attention to Long Mu, who had appeared in front of them almost silently. When Long Mu appeared in front of this person and used his absolute strength to suppress them, these Hong Meng consolidation stage people naturally became prey for Long Mu. Several rays of light burst out from Long Mu's body. He was only a foot away from the person from the Mountain Rock tribe. The person from the Mountain Rock tribe naturally reacted. He hurriedly withdrew his Hong Meng power and returned it to his body. Then, he frantically used the Hong Meng power around him to form a somewhat decent Hong Meng barrier around him. This person knew very well that since he had been approached, he would be attacked by Long Mu in the next moment. Therefore, it was the right move to start defending now. However, this person did not know that the Hong Meng barrier he formed in a panic was not worthy of Long Mu's attention. In the past, Long Mu was a true Hong Meng Tianjing expert. Even though he had no choice but to fall into the Hong Meng Yuanjie because of his physical body, the Hong Meng techniques that Long Mu mastered were all able to display the strength of Hong Meng Tianjing. Now, the defensive technique that this person from the Hong Meng consolidation stage hastily formed was just a thin piece of paper in Long Mu's eyes. Long Chen channeled his power and a ray of light shot out from his palm and heavily bombarded the Hong Meng barrier. Boom! The sound of a Hong Meng explosion suddenly shook the air. The other people from the Mountain Rock tribe followed the sound and saw that the Hong Meng barrier had already been shattered by the power in the air before the ray of light even came into contact with it. Without the obstruction of the Hong Meng barrier, the person from the mountain rock tribe who Long Mu had approached had no way of resisting such a fierce ray of light. The ray of light entered his body, and this person suffered the ultimate blow. His body was directly sent flying by the Hong Meng explosion sword and immediately left behind a ray of light on the mountain path. After finishing off this person from the mountain rock tribe with one move, Long Mu did not stop at all. His body continued to move, and the power of Hong Meng around him became even more ferocious. A formation of 7 people could not stop Long Mu from coming and going as he pleased, let alone a formation of 6, 5, or even 4 people. As Long Mu ran through the mountain rock tribe, 3 people were quickly kicked out by Long Mu in a simple and crude way. These people who were kicked out were either unconscious or dead. In short, they did not have the strength to continue fighting. Impossible! A trace of blood flashed across Shi Feiyang's eyes when he saw this scene. The fact that 3 people were kicked out of the formation was not what angered Shi Feiyang the most. What angered Shi Feiyang the most was that when Long Mu was looking for people to kick out of the formation, he had intentionally avoided him. That was to say, Long Mu wanted Shi Feiyang to watch as his own people were kicked out of the formation one by one, leaving him alone. If they wanted to survive, they had to stop the Dragon's Tomb's attack. Now that 3 out of the 7 had died, they could no longer allow the Dragon's Tomb to attack them. This was the problem that Shi Feiyang had to consider next. To the people from the Mountain Rock tribe who were at the Hong Meng Consolidation Realm, under the attack of Long Mu's strength, no matter what kind of defense Shi Feiyang and the others used, it was useless. Chapter 1786. While Long Mu was fighting with the 7 men from the Mountain Shi tribe, Long Chen wanted to intervene several times. However, he was stopped by Long Mu's fierce glare in between the attacks. Obviously, Long Mu was addicted to fighting. Long Chen had no choice. Since he could not intervene, he slowly retreated. Long Chen did not treat this battle as an important matter from the start. After all, the difference in strength was too great. Looking at the people who were kicked out one by Long Mu, Long Chen still hoped that the remaining people from the Mountain Shi tribe would be able to surprise him. At this moment, Hua Lei had recovered more than half of her strength. The imbalance of yin and yang caused by the movement of Hong Meng in her body had also gradually disappeared with the help of the elixir that Long Yuan had brought. After recovering some of her qi and blood, she stood beside Hua Zhan and Long Yuan, looking at the battle between Long Mu and the 7 men from the Mountain Shi tribe. At this moment, Hua Zhan was already shocked by Long Mu's strength. His eyes were filled with shock, and it did not fade away for a long time. Brother Long Mu is actually so strong? Hua Lei looked at Long Mu's figure, who was constantly attacking the Mountain Shi tribe. She could not help but exclaim in admiration. Long Chen smiled and said, "With Long Mu's strength, it is not a problem for him to do this. If it were me or Long Yuan, we would be able to break through the Mountain Shi tribe's formation. Your brother may not be able to do it. After all, your brother is only at the Hong Meng Consolidation Realm. At most he can handle it, but he can't do it as freely as Long Mu. However, don't forget that you and your sister Hua Yan are also at the Hong Meng Yuanjia level. If it were you, you could do it too." "Me?" Hua Lei revealed an awkward expression when she heard Shi Feiyang's words. She felt a little ashamed when she recalled how she was easily suppressed by Shi Feiyang, who was at the primordial consolidation stage, when she used the Hong Meng Qi around her. Logically speaking, you can do it. However, perhaps it is because you rarely use the power of Hong Meng, so every time you use the power of Hong Meng, you can only feel its existence. However, you are not able to use the power of Hong Meng completely. This caused you to be helpless when you used the power of Hong Meng to form the domain, when faced with the attacks of Shi Feiyang and the others. But I can't use the power of Hong Meng all the time. You also know that my physique," Hua Lei said slowly. Long Chen smiled slightly and said, Didn't Shi Fei Yang say that the Luo Hua Divine Jade will definitely appear at the trade fair that is going to be organized at a gathering place in the north? When the time comes, as long as you obtain the Luo Hua Divine Jade, what is there to be afraid of? You heard all of this. Hua Lei was shocked. One had to know that when Shi Fei Yang had mentioned this matter to them, Hua Lei had not been forced to use the Hong Meng around her. What if Long Chen had already arrived at that time, but had only listened to their conversation from the side without lending a hand? Long Chen said, "You don't have to be surprised. The three of us have been here for a long time. Regarding the conversation between you and Shi Fei Yang, we naturally heard it clearly. The reason why we didn't help at the beginning was not because we had other intentions. It was because we wanted to see how powerful your physique was." "You said that? What do you mean?" When Hua Zhan heard Long Chen's words, a trace of hostility immediately appeared in his eyes. Long Chen's words really confused Hua Zhan. Long Chen said, "Hua Zhan, haven't you thought about it? If you really get the Luo Hua Divine Jade and solve the problem of your two sisters' physiques, what will happen after that? You should know that 10,000 years ago, a person in the Fallen Flower tribe relied on this rare body of burial flower and the protection of the Luo Hua Divine Jade to become the chief of the Fallen Flower tribe, one of the top 10 tribes in the polar region of Hong Meng. Your two sisters, without the protection of the Luo Hua Divine Jade, have already reached a higher realm than you at such a young age. If they really get the Luo Hua Divine Jade, their achievements in the future will definitely be far greater than yours. Moreover, with them, your Fallen Flower tribe will become even more powerful. At that time, your two sisters are destined to become experts in Hong Meng Tianjing, and even have a chance to become the Tao ancestor of Hong Meng." Hearing Long Chen mention the Tao ancestor of Hong Meng, Hua Zhan's face twitched a little. He really did not think about these things that Long Chen said. Originally, he only thought that entering the small spiritual world, finding the Luo Hua Divine Jade, and saving the lives of his two sisters was the most important thing. Just like what Long Chen said, if they really found the Luo Hua Divine Jade, what would happen to his two sisters? Hua Lei and Hua Yan looked at each other, not knowing what to say. Long Yuan also scratched his head. For a moment, he didn't understand what Long Chen meant. Long Chen continued, "As far as I know, some people are planning something big in this small spiritual world. Although I don't want to do it, I am now tied to this matter. This is because my strength has attracted the attention of some people. Your two sisters are likely to be like this in the future. Since the body of the flower burial physique exists, it means that it will be unusual, especially after the Luo Hua Divine Jade is found. Let's not talk about anything else for now. The Fallen Flower tribe, which is originally from the same clan as your Damaged Flower tribe, will definitely come to inquire. At that time, your two sisters will be controlled by the Fallen Flower tribe and will leave. Moreover, the Damaged Flower tribe is opposed by the Mountain Rock tribe. Behind the Mountain Rock tribe is the Rock tribe. If the Rock tribe knows that there are two people with the body of the flower burial physique in the Damaged Flower tribe and successfully found the Luo Hua Divine Jade, do you think they won't take action? Since the ancient times until now, how many monstrous geniuses have perished at the hands of their enemies? Even though your two younger sisters possess the strength of a primordial origin realm expert, they can't even defeat a primordial unity realm expert. So, how could they possibly have the ability to protect themselves? If they are in front of the Rock tribe or the elders of the Mountain Rock tribe, how long do you think Hua Lei and Hua Yan can last? Hearing this, Hua Zhan's brows furrowed even tighter. Finally, he couldn't help but ask, "What do you mean by this?" Long Chen smiled and said, "It's very simple. I just want to provide you with a choice." Chapter 1787. Take you as a disciple, page 1/1. Hua Zhan frowned and asked, "What choice?" Long Chen grinned and said, I can take these two younger sisters of yours as disciples. I'll teach them the primordial arts, and I'll help them obtain the falling flower divine jade from the trade fair." "What?" the four people beside Long Chen exclaimed at the same time. Long Yuan never thought that Long Chen would have such an idea. Take in two disciples and two girls. Hua Lei and Hua Yan were in a daze. They didn't know what to do next. Hua Zhan trembled and said, "Brother Long Chen, are you serious?" Long Chen nodded in response. Hua Zhan let out a long breath and said, "Why are you doing this? You may not know this, but my physique is not an ordinary person's physique. Naturally, it is a little special. Long Yuan's physique is even more special. The Dragon Tomb's physique is not counted. The reason why the two of us are able to have such achievements is largely due to the influence of our unique physique. If we can obtain the Luo Hua God Jade in the future, your two sisters will have the possibility to become outstanding people like Long Yuan and I. Although it is a little understatement to say this is the truth. I have a deep understanding of the way people with special physiques grow. Moreover, no matter what, I can achieve perfection to the greatest extent possible. More importantly, if we obtain the Luo Hua God Jade, we will be able to obtain it. More importantly, the Falling Flower Divine Jade is really at the trade fair. I will definitely go there and get it for you," Long Chen said seriously. Long Chen already had this idea when he knew about Hua Lei and Hua Yan's special body constitution. The reason why he didn't say it before was because he felt that there were no conditions to rely on. Now it was different. Firstly, he saved these three people. Secondly, even if Hua Zhan and the other two knew where the Falling Flower Divine Jade was, they probably didn't have enough strength to get it. Therefore, Long Chen stated all these conditions one by one at this time. Naturally, the chances of persuading Hua Zhan would be higher. To Long Chen, accepting these two disciples would bring him great benefits, both now and in the future. Hua Lei and Hua Yan were like two pieces of unpolished jade. If they had the protection of the Falling Flower Divine Jade, then Hua Lei and Hua Yan would be able to completely remove the imbalance of yin and yang energy in their bodies, and they would be able to start living like normal people. If Long Chen began to teach Hua Yan and Hua Lei at this time, then their future achievements would very likely surpass Long Chen's. After Long Chen, he would first go to the ancient battlefield to look for Jian Shisan and Zhu Xin. After that, he would leave the small spirit world and go to the Long Meng polar region to explore. After that, he would plan to take revenge for the Hong Meng Dao ancestor. It could be said that Long Chen had been planning for a long time. The carefree cultivator had truly become a person who moved forward with a goal in mind. However, Long Chen liked this. Having a purpose was always better than living muddle-headedly every day. As for his subordinates, Hua Lei and Hua Yan, they would be beneficial to Long Chen's future operations. If Hua Lei and Hua Yan could really become Long Chen's disciples, then Long Chen's future operations would definitely be dependent on these two women. Just like Hua Lei and Hua Yan's background in the Ruined Flower tribe, it would also be of great help to Long Chen's future activities in the Hong Meng polar region. Now, it really depended on Hua Zhan's opinion. Hua Lei and Hua Yan had a sense of inferiority due to their special physique, so they had always listened to Hua Zhan. In Hua Lei and Hua Yan's opinion, Hua Zhan would definitely not harm them. As long as it was something that Hua Zhan agreed to, Hua Lei and Hua Yan would naturally accept it. Hua Zhan looked at Long Chen, then looked at Hua Lei and Hua Yan. He hesitated for a long time, unable to make up his mind. Long Chen sighed and said, "Brother Hua Zhan, I also understand your difficulties. How about this? After today, we will go to the Gathering Places trade fair together. When I help you get the Falling Flower Divine Jade, you can make your decision again." Hearing this, Hua Zhan nodded and said, "All right, that's good too." Hua Lei and Hua Yan looked at Hua Zhan in a daze. No one knew what they were thinking. Long Chen slowly said, "Brother Hua Zhan, you have to believe me. I don't have any evil intentions. Perhaps in your opinion, I don't have the qualifications to be a teacher. Indeed, I don't have much experience in being a teacher. However, I can tell you that the disciples that I, Long Chen, have accepted are the best of the best. You have also seen Long Yuan's strength. I also have 2 disciples who are also very outstanding. However, I only saw Hua Lei and Hua Yan. Since they have such talent, I can't waste it like this. Hua Zhan nodded and said, "All right, I will consider it." Long Chen let out a long sigh and said, "Looks like this battle is about to end." Hua Zhan and the others looked at the battlefield. Indeed, as Long Chen had said, the battle between Long Mu and the Mountain Rock tribe was coming to an end. Bang! Bang! The brilliance around Long Mu's body was constantly attacking. Long Mu didn't kick the remaining 4 people of the Mountain Rock tribe out of their large formation. However, Long Mu's actions angered the people of the Mountain Rock tribe even more. Shi Feiyang forcibly maintained this large formation. During the intervals between Long Mu's attacks, he would still launch some attacks, bombarding Long Mu, who was flying around in midair. Yes, Long Mu didn't dodge. Instead, he took all of the attacks, or rather, he took all of them head-on. However, when these attacks bombarded Long Mu's body, Long Mu didn't react at all. Long Mu was using this action to tell Shi Feiyang and the others that their attacks weren't even enough to scratch an itch in his eyes. This situation continued. Long Mu didn't attack. He only scattered the brilliance around his body, searching for the attacks of Shi Feiyang and the others in midair, and then took them head-on. It had to be said that under Long Mu's humiliation, a cold glint appeared in the eyes of the remaining people of the Mountain Rock tribe. However, the 4 of them seemed to have forgotten something. The reason why the dragon's tomb dared to do this was undoubtedly because it was far stronger than the 4 of them. In other words, no matter how Shi Feiyang and the others attacked, the dragon's tomb would have absolute confidence that he could beat them in the Champions League. Therefore, the best decision for Shi Feiyang and the others now was to escape. However, in their anger, they had clearly forgotten this matter. Sogu's reading website. Chapter 1788. The Peerless Dragon Emperor. When Long Mu finally had enough fun, it was time for Shi Feiyang and the others to suffer. Finally, Long Mu slowly retracted his brilliance and gathered the Hong Meng power in his body. The pitiful Shi Feiyang and the others didn't even realize that they were about to die. They were just thinking of using Long Chen to retract their brilliance and prepare to deal the strongest blow to Long Mu. This kind of hope was always good. Long Mu slightly circulated the Hong Meng power in his body. Immediately after, the Hong Meng power around his body began to vibrate violently. It was also at this moment that Long Mu's body once again flashed with brilliance. As for that light, it was much more powerful than the light from before. Shi Feiyang and the others were furious. The Hong Meng power fluctuated above the damaged array. The 4 of them were preparing some kind of powerful attack. Fortunately, Long Mu wouldn't give them the chance to attack. Since they had enough fun, they had to do things cleanly. This was something that Long Mu often warned Long Chen about. In front of Long Mu, the brilliance that had condensed gradually grew stronger. Faintly, there seemed to be a dragon's shadow floating within the brilliance. Long Chen looked at this shocking attack. Although he didn't know what kind of attack it was, just by looking at the Hong Meng power ripples in the air, Long Chen was sure that this level of attack was enough to destroy him. Yet now, he was actually facing 4 people at the primordial convergence realm. This contrast was truly slightly laughable. However, in order to completely eliminate the source of trouble, Long Mu was making a big fuss over a minor issue. The dragon's shadow in the brilliance grew stronger and stronger. Finally, at this moment, when the attack that Shi Feiyang and the others were preparing was about to take shape, the dragon's shadow in the brilliance engulfed all of the Hong Meng power between heaven and earth. After a torrential downpour, Shi Feiyang and the others were completely killed by this brilliance. Boom, boom, boom. These 3 Hong Meng explosions shook the heavens and the earth. Shi Feiyang and the others were completely blasted into a pile of dregs. Not to mention their bodies, even their limbs couldn't be found. Hua Zhan and the other 2 looked at this earth-shattering scene and were momentarily stunned. Long Chen immediately smiled. After clearing his throat, he said in a clear voice, "Long Mu, this kid, the technique that I taught him is pretty good." When Long Yuan heard this, he immediately cursed in his heart. If Long Mu was here, Long Chen wouldn't dare to say this. When Hua Zhan and the other 2 heard this, they immediately looked at Long Chen again. They still had the same stunned expression, especially Hua Zhan. At this moment, other than amazement, his expression was even more puzzled. After Long Mu finished dealing with these 4 people, he swept towards the 3 people that he had previously sent flying. When Long Mu attacked those 3 people, he deliberately didn't kill them. He wanted to leave them alive so that he could thoroughly enrage Shi Feiyang and the others. Now that Shi Feiyang and the others had been reduced to ashes, Long Mu naturally wanted to deal with these 3 people again. After finishing everything, Long Mu Long Chen. Exhaling, he slowly flew to Long Chen's side and greeted Hua Zhan and the others. After such a huge battle, the mountain range, which originally had some fresh scenery, immediately became a mess. "So, we should go to the gathering place right now?" Hua Zhan said fearfully. It was obvious that Hua Zhan was actually a little afraid of Long Chen at this moment. Long Chen hurriedly smiled gently and said, "Brother Hua Zhan, there's no need for us to be like this. Strength and cultivation are not related to friendship. Moreover, I didn't take your 2 sisters as disciples. There's no need to be so timid. No matter what, I still have to thank you for saving my life." Hua Zhan calmed down a little and said, "That's right." Long Chen smiled and said, "What we should do next is to hurry to the gathering place and try to find out who has the Luo Hua Divine Jade before the trade fair starts. This way we can be mentally prepared. Although it's called a trade fair, we are all aware of the shady business inside. Moreover, this is a small spiritual world. If we don't make preparations in advance, I'm afraid that when we reach there, we will only be blind." Hua Zhan somewhat agreed with Long Chen's words and said, "Indeed, in the past trade fairs in the polar regions of Hong Meng, there are many people who are not tempted by some mistakes. After the trade fair ends, they will do some shady business. This kind of thing might be even more intense in this small spiritual world." Long Chen's expression was solemn as he said, "No matter what, we should hurry up and reach the gathering place earlier so that we can be more prepared." The rest of the people agreed with this method. Long Chen thought that Hua Lei and Hua Yen could not use the Hong Meng around them, so he let Long Yuan's demonic dragon spear change. He let Hua Lei and Hua Yen stand on the demonic dragon spear and move forward together. Hua Zhan flew to the side and protected the 2 girls at all times. Long Yuan stood at the front of the demonic dragon spear, and behind him was Hua Lei who hugged Long Yuan. Long Chen and Long Mu brought up the rear. Although the 6 of them were not fast, it was still much faster than walking. During the flight, Long Mu came to Long Chen's side and said solemnly, "What are you planning to do? Why do you still want to take Hua Lei and Hua Yen as disciples?" Long Chen nodded and said, "With their physiques, if they can obtain the protection of the Luo Hua Divine Jade, their future will be bright. You can also see this. You want to use their strength to complete our future tasks?" Long Mu asked. Long Chen said, "It seems like it. If they can help and want to help, it's naturally best to let them do something. If they don't want to, then it's fine too. That's not the most important thing." "That's not the most important thing? Then what is it?" Long Mu was getting more and more confused. Long Chen chuckled and said, "Haven't you noticed that since last night, there has been something wrong with the dragon abyss?" After hearing this, Long Mu reacted a little and immediately understood Long Chen's meaning. The 2 of them looked at each other and laughed. After Long Chen and the rest left, the mountain plains where the battle took place were already full of ruins. In the middle of it, a slightly deliberate mound of dirt was slowly condensed without any external interference. Very quickly, the mound of dirt grew bigger and bigger. At its peak, it was actually more than 10 feet high. At the same time, beside the mound of dirt, there was a faint fluctuation of Hong Meng. If one did not sense it carefully, one would not be able to detect it. At this time, there was a cry of surprise from the mound of dirt. Don't even think about getting the Luo Hua Divine Jade. Chapter 1789. Domain Stone Pillar, page 1/1. The extreme north was the remains of the ancient battlefield that people had discovered. During this period of time, almost everyone knew that there was a spirit world relic and an ancient battlefield in the small spirit world. These two places were filled with endless treasures. There were endless spiritual treasures and opportunities. Naturally, everyone who entered the small spiritual world fought to enter these two places to search for their own opportunities. Look. Most new greater than over equal to seal section greater than over equal to 100 degree greater than over equal to search so greater than over equal to subproduct greater than over equal to subbook greater than over equal to net greater than over equal to so. In this way, there were not many people in the real small spirit world. The gathering places that Long Chen had seen before did not have many people. Now Long Chen came to a gathering place near the extreme north and finally saw enough people. This gathering place also seemed to have a plan. However, there were many experts moving about in this gathering place, but there was not the slightest bit of noise. Thinking about it, the power that controlled this gathering place was definitely not to be underestimated. Moreover, it had to be guaranteed that the power that controlled this gathering place was not an unreasonable tribe like the Tianfeng tribe. This tribe had to have a certain amount of prestige in the hearts of the people in order to make so many people be willing to be controlled by them. Control. With a powerful tribe governing this gathering place, there were more rules in this gathering place. After all, in this small spirit world, especially now that the spirit world relic and the ancient battlefield had appeared, they were still able to guard this place. The power that controlled this gathering place was also worthy of respect to a certain extent. Of course, there were exceptions to everything. On the surface, the tribe that controlled this place said that they wanted to maintain law and order in this gathering place, but the people of this tribe were in the minority compared to the people of this small spirit realm. If there were some small conflicts in this gathering place, as long as it was not too big and did not infringe on the tribe's rights, these people would turn a blind eye. In general, this gathering place was much better than the gathering places that Long Chen had seen before. When Long Chen looked down at this gathering place from midair, he could not help but be shocked. An endless stream of tents and wooden houses were piled up from one mountain range to another. Long Chen was unable to react to the sight of so many people moving about. It could be seen that this gathering place outside the ancient battlefield in the extreme north could be considered the largest gathering place in this small spirit world. There were also many people who were looking down at this gathering place like Long Chen's group. These people gathered from all directions. They did not know each other, but they were all filled with yearning for this gathering place below. Thinking about it, this gathering place could be considered as a place of crouching tigers and hidden dragons. Brother Long Chen, I think it's better for us to descend earlier. If we directly descend from the gathering place, it will unavoidably be a bit conspicuous. If we cause some unnecessary trouble, it will not be worth it. At that moment, Hua Zhan spoke from the side. Long Chen nodded and said, Brother Hua Zhan's words make sense. Long Yuan, stop here and land on the periphery of this gathering place. Long Chen understood that in such a vast gathering place, the more people there were, the more experts there would be. With so many experts, there would naturally be more people who harbored ill intentions but were also capable. Hiding one's edge did not mean that one had to tuck one's tail between one's legs, but to save a lot of trouble. Although there was a large tribe that was one of the top 10 tribes overseeing this place, they probably wouldn't intervene in every trivial matter. At most, they would just maintain the stability on the surface. Naturally, they wouldn't interfere in anything else. Ignore it. Just like the trade fair this time, it was a condition that could attract so many people. It was precisely because the trade fair was overseen by the 10 major tribes that these people were so assured to take out their own numinous treasures. Otherwise, it would be otherwise. Perhaps these people would rather throw away the spiritual treasures that they had no use for than take them out. After all, the rules of this small spirit world were indeed a little difficult to describe. Long Chen's group landed and considered to have entered this gathering place. Looking at the people coming and going, Long Chen did not know why, but he asked Long Yuan to go and inquire about some information. Hua Zhan took the initiative to volunteer and went with Long Yuan. Long Chen and Long Mu were responsible for finding the remaining spiritual treasures. Sogu's reading website. Chapter 1790. In other words, strictly speaking, this domain stele is not a stele, but a golden firmament pill from Hong Meng Tianjing? Long Chen understood Long Mu's words. Long Mu nodded and said, more or less. You can explain it that way. In short, this domain stele contains the attribute of being able to communicate with the power of a Hong Meng Yuan Jie expert's domain. It is indeed able to detect the power of a Hong Meng Yuan Jie expert's domain. Long Chen finally understood. In the past, there were many Hong Meng Tianjing experts fighting in the small spiritual world. Even if the conditions for the formation of the domain stele were too harsh, it was still reasonable for the Pale Cloud tribe to be able to find one. Thinking of this, Long Chen said thoughtfully, in that case, other than being able to detect the potential of a Hong Meng Yuan Jie expert's domain, what other uses does this domain stele have? Long Mu shook his head firmly and said, other than being able to reflect the power of a Hong Meng Yuan Jie expert's domain through the form of brilliance, it has no other uses. Long Chen was silent for a while. At this time, Long Mu asked Long Yuan's Hua Zhan, what does the Pale Cloud tribe plan to do with this domain stele? Hua Zhan replied, that's what I'm here to tell you. The Green Cloud tribe is indeed an open-minded tribe. Most of the people in the Green Cloud tribe are experts in the Hong Meng firmament realm. Among them, an expert in the Hong Meng primordial realm used the domain stele once. After learning about his domain power, the Green Cloud tribe released the domain stele for all the experts in the Hong Meng primordial realm to use. Today is the first day it's open for use. Long Chen's eyes lit up. There's such a good thing? That's right. Hua Zhan smiled and said, but this is nothing. Just like what the Long Mu brothers said, the role of the domain monument is only limited to experts who can detect the domain of Hong Meng Yuan Jie experts. As for the Hong Meng consolidation realm and Hong Meng Tianjing, they don't resonate with the domain monument at all. Even if they can detect the power of their own domain, it won't be of much help. It's only because the domain monument is too rare in the polar regions of Hong Meng that it attracts so many people. I see. Should we go and take a look? Long Chen suggested. Hua Zhan replied, of course we should go. Hua Lei and Hua Yan are Hong Meng Yuan Jie. Although they can't use the Hong Meng power in their bodies at will, the domain power in their bodies can be detected through the domain monument. There's no harm in going and taking a look. In that case, let's go. I'm also a little curious about how strong my domain power will be. Long Chen was very confident. It should be known that before Long Chen advanced to Hong Meng Yuan Jie, he forcefully suppressed his strength at the 9th level of Hong Meng consolidation realm for almost a month. Therefore, Long Chen naturally had some expectations for his own domain power. After all, the strength of the domain power represented the strength of the golden firmament core after advancing to Hong Meng Tianjing. The strength of the golden firmament core represented the strength of the Hong Meng Tianjing, and the strength of the Hong Meng Tianjing represented the possibility of advancing to Hong Meng Dao ancestor. Long Chen almost couldn't wait to stand up. After some discussion, the few of them left the wooden house and headed towards the location of the domain monument that Long Yuan Huazhan had found out. The location of the domain monument was at the center of the gathering place. It was a flat land where a mountain range intersected with another mountain range. People came and went, and there was no sense of panic like on the steep mountainside. Long Chen and the others had just arrived when they saw the domain monument erected in the middle of the flat land. The appearance of the domain monument was somewhat out of Long Chen's expectations. Long Chen originally thought that the domain monument was a huge stone tablet or a towering pillar. He didn't expect that the domain monument, which was called a domain monument, was actually a faintly discernible domain barrier. The domain monument was surrounded by rich Hong Meng energy. As they walked closer, they could feel the Hong Meng energy that was released from the domain monument. Some brilliance was released from the domain monument, and this brilliance would appear from time to time. Long Chen hurriedly looked over and saw that someone was pouring their own domain strength into the domain monument in order to activate the power of the domain monument and reflect their own domain strength. Although this spiritual treasure had no other use other than to investigate the domain strength of Hong Meng Yuanjie experts, in Long Chen's opinion, if such a huge domain monument could be controlled, it would be able to smash a few Hong Meng consolidation realm experts to death. If other people were to know of Long Chen's thoughts, they would probably die of laughter. The brilliance around the domain monument flickered and dimmed from time to time. The vague domain strength was mixed with continuous waves of Hong Meng energy, and it emitted ripples of Hong Meng energy on the flat land. Long Chen and the others stood beside the domain monument and looked at it for a long time. During this time, many people also went forward to test it. Just as Long Mu had said before, many people left 3 or 4 rays of brilliance on the domain monument. It was rare to see 4 rays of brilliance. Almost 70 to 80% of people left 3 rays of brilliance. As for those who left 5 rays of brilliance, Long Chen still couldn't find a single one after so long. Thinking about it, with this domain monument, all the Hong Meng Yuanjie experts in this gathering place came back to test it out. After all, it wasn't a bad thing to know one's own potential. When people saw that their domain strength could only activate 3 rays of brilliance on the domain monument, they weren't too discouraged. After all, being able to become a Hong Meng Yuanjie expert was already something that many Hong Meng consolidation realm experts envied. During this time, Long Chen even saw a Hong Meng Yuanjie expert who only activated 2 rays of brilliance on the domain monument, but his expression didn't change much. Talent was only a congenital condition, and hard work was also indispensable. As long as one could advance to Hong Meng Yuanjie, one couldn't say that these people's talent was bad. However, some of the meanings of the domain monument were just to reflect the probability of these Hong Meng Yuanjie experts advancing to Hong Meng Tianjing. 3 rays of brilliance meant a 30% chance of success. 4 rays of brilliance meant a 40% chance. If the domain monument lit up 10 rays of brilliance, then this person would definitely be able to advance to Hong Meng Tianjing. Chapter 1791. Just as Long Chen's group was about to reach the domain tablet and get a chance to test it, a group of people suddenly barged in. Long Chen released a little of his mind and immediately sensed that this group of people were all experts from Hong Meng Yuanjie. This group of people hurriedly entered the flat ground. Their mighty aura immediately caused some of the people who were closer to the domain stone pillar to take a few steps back. After all, anyone could tell that the purpose of this group of people was to test their own domain strength. From the looks of it, although it was not clear which tribe this group of people came from, their strength was not to be trifled with. This group of people did not belong to a single faction. Instead, it was vaguely made up of 3 or 4 tribes. The person leading the group was a man wearing a black robe. This man's appearance was somewhat handsome. However, his overall aura was somewhat dark. Looking at him from afar, one could tell that this man was an anxious and gloomy person. The way these people acted was obviously somewhat tyrannical. However, Long Chen felt that there was some reason for them to do so. After all, with such strength, this group of Hong Meng Yuanjie experts would be a force that could not be ignored in this small spiritual world, no matter where they were. Beside the leading black-clothed man, there was a silver-clothed tall lady with a beautiful and elegant appearance. Looking from a distance, Long Chen was able to detect a dark and cold chill in the eyes of this tall lady. From the looks of it, this silver-clothed woman should be an ice beauty without a doubt. She was very different from Zhou Xiaoxiao, whom Long Chen had seen before. The ice beauty's eyes were cold as she looked at the domain tablet in front of her. On her face, there was a hint of killing intent. Behind the ice beauty, there was another person whom Long Chen could remember. This person's appearance and clothes were not eye-catching. However, what caught Long Chen's attention was that when Long Chen's mind was probing, this person was the only one who had sensed Long Chen's mind. If it were not for Long Chen's quick reaction, Long Chen would have fought with this person at this time. This person's face was gloomy. After sensing Long Chen's mind, he coldly snorted and looked around the flat ground in a circle. This could be considered as showing off his strength. No matter what, the people who had appeared in front of Long Chen were all very strong. They might belong to the 10 great tribes. After all, it was impossible for a large tribe to have so many Hong Meng Yuanjie experts. Even the Green Cloud tribe, which was the leader of the 10 great tribes, only had half of the people who had come to the small spirit world from Hong Meng Yuanjie and the other half from Hong Meng Tianjing. These people were able to make an entire team of people from Hong Meng Yuanjie. Moreover, their strength was not below Long Chen's. Just like the Tianfeng tribe that Long Chen had faced previously, it seemed that they were indeed from the 10 great tribes. Brother Huazhan, do you have any impression of these people? Long Chen moved closer to Huazhan and asked. Huazhan nodded and said, the guy in black is called Shifeng. He is from the Rock tribe. Rock tribe? Long Chen's eyes flashed with a trace of horror. He said, what a coincidence! I am also a little surprised, Huazhan said, however, since the people from the Mountain Rock tribe have been dealt with, the Rock tribe should not be aware of anything for a while. I am just a little afraid that if the Rock tribe knows the use of the falling flower divine jade, will they cause trouble for us in the following trade fair? Long Chen nodded and said, let's not think about this for now. Let's just pretend that the Rock tribe does not know the use of the falling flower divine jade. Even if they know the use of the falling flower divine jade, they do not have the body of flower burial. It is useless for them to obtain it. I hope so. Huazhan sighed and said, the girl in silver seems to be called Hai Qingling. She is from the Blue Sea tribe, one of the 10 great tribes. Blue Sea tribe. Long Chen muttered to himself and said, is it another one of the 10 great tribes? Huazhan looked at the gloomy man for a while and said, I do not know the other one. However, I have a feeling that his strength is definitely not below Shifeng and Lan Qingling. Why do you have such a feeling? Long Chen asked doubtfully. Huazhan shook his head and said, since he is able to come together with the Rock tribe and Blue Sea tribe of the 10 great tribes, if he is not from one of the 10 great tribes, he must be very powerful. Long Chen nodded and said, you are right. It is likely that they have come to investigate their own domain strength. The domain stone pillar is a rare item in the polar region of Hong Meng. Once a domain stone pillar is discovered and dragged out, the Hong Meng domain stone pillar will disappear over time. In 5 to 6 days, it will completely disappear and the domain stone pillar will lose its effect. Huazhan said with a serious expression. Long Chen frowned slightly and said, there is such a thing. It seems that we have come at a good time. Just as Long Chen and Hua Zhan were conversing, a commotion suddenly came from the side of the domain stone pillar. Long Chen quickly looked over and saw that the leader of the previous group, Shi Feng, who was also the leader of the rock tribe, had already walked to the side of the domain stone pillar. In the next moment, it was time for the domain stone pillar to test his domain strength. Since he was the leader of one of the 10 great tribes, his talent was naturally extraordinary. Long Chen was a little curious about how many rays of light Shi Feng would be able to activate on the domain stone pillar. 4 rays of light should be the minimum, Long Chen thought. As the leader of the rock tribe, there were naturally many people in the polar region who knew of Shi Feng's name. Everyone was naturally curious about Shi Feng's domain strength. Shi Feng moved to the side of the domain stone pillar, and the Hong Meng domain stone pillar slightly condensed around him. He placed his hand on the Hong Meng barrier in front of the domain stone pillar. Some weak Hong Meng ripples floated around his body. In just a moment, the domain stone pillar lit up with a ray of light. Immediately, the second ray of light came as expected. The domain stone pillar also emitted a clear Hong Meng domain strength. The aura of the domain stone pillar was very strong. Next, the third ray of light appeared, just like the previous group of people who had come to investigate the domain strength. However, when the third ray of light lit up on the domain stone pillar, everyone knew that it was far from over. Even Shi Feng, who had placed his hand on the domain stone pillar, revealed a smile at the corner of his mouth. Chapter 1792. When the third ray of light appeared on the domain tablet, the fourth ray of light finally appeared after a long time of chanting. The 4 rays of light were similar to the ones Long Chen had seen before. Those with 3 rays of light could be considered ordinary people, while those with 4 rays of light could be considered as having some talent. Everyone exclaimed when they saw the 4th ray of light. After all, he was the leader of the rock tribe. If he didn't have the talent, he wouldn't have become the leader. However, many people could see that after the 4th beam of light, there was still a faint fluctuation of domain power on the domain steel. Before the crowd could react, the domain power on the domain stone pillar surged in the next instant. Suddenly, the domain stone pillar lit up with a 5th brilliance. 5 rays of light. Those with 4 rays of light could be considered as having some talent, while those with 5 rays of light could be considered as having some talent. When the 5th ray of light lit up, everyone exclaimed one after another. After a while, Shi Feng tried a little harder, but there was no more reaction from the domain tablet. Shi Feng also knew that his domain power had stopped at the 5th ray of light. However, Shi Feng was already very satisfied with this result. After all, no one before him could make the domain tablet light up with 5 rays of light. Even those who could make 4 rays of light could be counted on one's fingers. After Shi Feng retreated, Hai Qingling immediately took a step forward. Clearly, Hai Qingling wanted to test the power of his domain. "Sister Qingling, do you have the confidence to surpass me?" Shi Feng looked at Hai Qingling's slender hand and the corners of his mouth curled up as he said with a smile. Hai Qingling rolled her eyes and ignored Shi Feng. She walked to the side of the domain tablet and prepared to test it with her domain power. Hai Qingling didn't reply. Shi Feng felt a little embarrassed, but he couldn't do anything about it. After all, Hai Qingling's strength was not below his. In terms of influence, the Blue Ocean tribe and the Rock tribe were both part of the top 10 tribes. It was still unknown who was stronger. Hai Qingling extended her slender jade-like hand and slowly placed it on the domain tablet. At the same time, the domain power around her gathered and directly poured into the domain tablet. The first 4 lights lit up at almost the same time. The brightness of those lights was even deeper than Shi Feng's. 4 rays of light lit up. No one exclaimed because they knew that there would be something worth cheering for in the next moment. Sure enough, the 5th ray of light appeared on the domain steel under everyone's expectant gazes. Only then did the crowd burst into cheers. To be able to see two geniuses who had caused the domain monument pillars to light up with 5 beams of light was indeed worthy of cheering. At this moment, Hai Qingling frowned slightly. The domain power around her was still instilling into the domain steel. When Long Chen saw this, he smiled and said, "I think Hai Qingling will have 6 lights." "What? 6 streaks of brilliance?" Hua Zhan was very surprised when he heard this. The moment Hua Zhan's voice fell, the 6th ray of brilliance suddenly appeared on the domain steel. Everyone exclaimed when they saw the 6th ray of brilliance. Suddenly, they fell into silence. Although the brightness of the 6th ray of brilliance was a little dimmer than the previous 5 rays of brilliance, no matter what, the 6th ray of brilliance had indeed appeared. After a moment of silence, a burst of fierce exclamations came from somewhere. Hai Qingling retracted her palm, turned around and replied coldly to Shifeng, "I naturally have the confidence to surpass you." When Shifeng heard this, he forcefully swallowed back the congratulatory words he was about to say. His face was gloomy. When he thought about how he had been complacent about activating 5 rays of brilliance and showed off in front of Hai Qingling, Shifeng couldn't help but feel ashamed. There are actually 6 rays of brilliance. It really can't be underestimated. It seems that the people of the top 10 tribes aren't as arrogant as the Tianfeng tribe. Long Mu sighed. Long Chen looked at Long Mu's amazed expression and said, "Long Mu, if you were to investigate, how many rays of brilliance would there be on the domain steel?" Long Mu smiled and said, "You might not believe me, but if I were to go, there would definitely be 10 rays of brilliance on the domain steel." Long Chen exclaimed and said, "You're that confident?" Long Mu waved his hand and said, "It's not that I'm confident, and it's not that I'm talented or that my domain power is strong. These conditions affect you pure Hong Meng Yuan Jie expert. For me, don't forget that my real strength is Hong Meng Tianjing. It's only because this body is ancient that I have to pretend to be Hong Meng Yuan Jie. If I were to investigate my domain power, the domain steel would either not be able to detect the domain power in my body because my domain is about to be transformed into a golden firmament core, or it would produce an unprecedented 10 rays of brilliance. Because I'm originally a Hong Meng Yuan Jie expert, the probability of me being able to advance is naturally 100%. But to me, it's really meaningless. After all, I'm originally a Hong Meng Tianjing expert. The number of rays of brilliance on the domain steel reflects the probability of a Hong Meng Yuan Jie expert being able to advance to Hong Meng Tianjing. To me, this probability is a joke. So it's like that. Long Chen curled his lips and said, "I thought it was something amazing." Long Mu's face turned ashen, and he immediately had the urge to kill Long Chen. After everyone's exclamation, the gloomy man who came with Shifeng and Hai Qingling, whom even Long Chen and Hua Zhan couldn't see through, also slowly took a few steps towards the domain steel. He was going to investigate his own domain power. Long Chen carefully observed. No matter if it was Shifeng who activated 5 rays of brilliance or Hai Qingling who activated 6 rays of brilliance, this gloomy man's face was calm, and there wasn't the slightest fluctuation in his expression. Obviously, this kind of person must be strong enough. Long Chen was also curious about how strong this gloomy man's domain power would be. The gloomy man walked to the side of the domain steel. After a little preparation, he casually placed his palm on the domain steel. Next, it was time for this gloomy man. Everyone was also paying attention to this moment. They also wanted to know what kind of strength this person who could stand side by side with the leaders of the top 10 tribes had. Chapter 1793. The Principle of the Tablet Pillar, page 1. Everyone was also looking forward to it. Some people even hoped that the gloomy man would be able to conjure 7 rays of light and break the record one by one. Long Chen understood that it was extremely rare for a person to possess 6 rays of brilliance. Such a person was extremely rare as phoenix feathers and qilin horns. If it could be activated so easily, then it was very likely that it was the domain steel. The tablet pillar had failed. Back to the topic at hand, when the gloomy man channeled his domain energy into the domain steel reacted as well. The first, second, and third rays of light lit up one after another. Everyone held their breath. Soon, the fourth ray of light appeared as expected. It seemed like these people were just as Long Chen had predicted. 4 rays of light was just the minimum. Hai Qingling's expression turned grave as she looked at the gloomy man. Perhaps it was because she was somewhat interested in this gloomy man. Shi Feng looked at the 4 rays of light that lit up so quickly, and a sense of fear appeared in his heart. He was afraid that this gloomy man would be like Hai Qingling and summon 6 rays of light. If that happened, he would become the domain power of the 3 of them. He would be the weakest one. I don't believe that 6 rays of light can be conjured so easily. Shi Feng muttered to himself. After the 4th ray of light lit up on the domain tablet, waves of domain power circled above it. Soon, the 5th ray of light lit up in an instant. The brightness of these 5 rays of light was the same as Hai Qingling's ray of light. When the rays of light appeared, the people around the domain tablet were also amazed. Swoosh! Just when everyone was still reacting, the 6th ray of light suddenly flashed on the domain tablet. After a while, there were 6 rays of light on the domain tablet. It was different from Hai Qingling. Although Hai Qingling had conjured 6 rays of light, her 6th ray of light was a little dim. However, the gloomy man's 6th ray of light was almost the same as his previous 5 rays of light. In other words, this gloomy man had the ability to control 6 rays of light. Everyone cried out in surprise. Amidst the cries of surprise, the gloomy man decisively put down his hand, shook his head, and retreated with a calm expression. Not even giving it a try. This person is really not simple. Long Chen could not help but sigh as he watched the gloomy man's actions. 2 peerless geniuses with 6 rays of brilliance in a row really surprised the people on the flat land. Long Chen naturally became more curious about this gloomy man. If this kind of person became an opponent, then it would be troublesome. Long Mu nodded and said, 5 rays of brilliance is considered a genius. 6 rays of brilliance is indeed a peerless genius. Long Chen smiled and said, Long Mu, how many rays of light do you think there will be if I go and check? Long Mu glanced at Long Chen and said with a smile, It's hard to say. Maybe 5 or maybe 6. After all, your aptitude can be considered passable. Passable. Long Chen's heart immediately went numb when he heard these words. Long Chen thought that his strength could at least reach 6 rays of brilliance. However, in Long Mu's heart, he was actually so useless. You'll regret it. Long Chen gritted his teeth and said. Long Mu shrugged with an indifferent look on his face. After the gloomy man finished his test, the exclamations and discussions on the flat land became uncontrollable. These experts of the Hong Meng Yuan Jie finally realized that to be promoted to the Hong Meng Yuan Jie, one could at most be promoted to a certain extent, knowing that one's strength was not enough to prove one's talent. Even if their talents had far surpassed those of the Hong Meng Yuan Jie's consolidation realm experts who could not be promoted to the Hong Meng Yuan Jie, in general, there was still a gap between them and Shi Feng. A gap that could not be bridged. Next, like before, a group of people began to move towards the domain pillar, wanting to check their own domain power. Shi Feng and the others did not monopolize it. They retreated a little to make way for the people who came later. When the domain steel lit up 3 more times, the crowd finally reacted. It turned out that the domain steel didn't malfunction. Long Yuan looked at everyone checking their own domain power and felt a little anxious. He quickly asked Long Chen for instructions and said, Master, let's go and try. Long Chen nodded and said, Okay, Hua Lei and Hua Yin go too. Anyway, this domain pillar is used to check the domain power. Even if you don't use the Hong Meng power in your body, you can still use some of the domain power. When Hua Lei and Hua Yan heard this, they both looked at Hua Zhan. After Hua Zhan nodded, they followed behind Long Yuan and tried to enter the domain pillar. Finally, it was Long Chen and the others' turn. Long Chen took the lead and went to the side of the domain pillar. He reached out his hand. It was not until he personally experienced it that Long Chen understood the principle of the domain pillar. The domain pillar itself was a domain. Strictly speaking, it was a collapsed domain. Just like what Long Mu had explained before, when the experts of the Hong Meng Tianjing died, the golden firmament core in their bodies was insufficient because of the Hong Meng power. Because of the depletion of energy, the golden firmament core collapsed into its original appearance. It should be known that the first step for the experts of the Hong Meng Yuanjie to advance to the Hong Meng Tianjing was to condense their domain into a golden firmament core. The origin of the golden firmament core was the domain. Therefore, when the golden firmament core became a domain again, there would be some wonderful changes. This transformation would cause many places to collapse in the domain formed in reverse. These collapses would condense into substance within the domain, causing the domain to look like a pillar. Thus, the domain would look like a pillar on the outside. Thus, the domain would look like one. This was also the reason why it was called the domain pillar. When someone instilled domain energy into the domain stone pillar again, the domain energy would stimulate the collapsed parts of the domain stone pillar, causing the condensed domain stone pillar to emit light. This was the domain stone pillar perimeter, the source of the light. This kind of spiritual treasure was very accurate when used to investigate the domain power of the experts of the Hong Meng Yuanjie. After all, it more or less contained the aura of the golden firmament core. If one's domain power could be investigated by the golden firmament core, it was equivalent to gaining the approval of the experts of the Hong Meng Tianjing. Naturally, it was only natural for the light to be produced. Sogu's reading website. Chapter 1794. After understanding the principle of the domain steel, Long Chen was slightly relieved. Extending his palm to the Hong Meng city wall, Long Chen activated the domain steel around him and began to infuse it into the domain steel. The people around naturally did not know Long Chen's origin. After all, Long Chen's name was in the spiritual world ruins on the other side of the small spiritual world. In this gathering place that was relatively close to the ancient battlefield, there was no one who could recognize Long Chen. Because of this, these people did not know Long Chen's true strength. Unlike the previous trio, everyone knew their talents and knew that they had 4 rays of brilliance. 5 rays of brilliance was nothing out of the ordinary for them. As for Long Chen, many people treated Long Chen as an ordinary Hong Meng Yuanjie expert. They thought that he was the kind of existence that had 4 rays of brilliance at most. Long Chen's domain steel continued to infuse the domain steel from afar. On the domain steel, 3 rays of brilliance lit up one after another. These 3 rays of brilliance were nothing out of the ordinary compared to the previous person. Everyone treated it as if he was an ordinary person. Soon, reality gave these people a resounding slap in the face. On the domain steel, the 4th ray of brilliance suddenly lit up. Moreover, its brightness was much brighter than the previous 3 rays of brilliance. Finally, there was a small commotion among the crowd. Although the domain steel with 4 rays of brilliance had appeared many times in the past, after that gloomy man, it had been a long time since the domain steel lit up with 4 rays of brilliance. Long Mu stood in the distance and smiled as he muttered to himself, "Can't he use all his strength at once? Why must he do it again and again?" Long Mu naturally understood Long Chen's true strength. He had previously estimated that Long Chen would have at least 5 rays of brilliance. 6 rays of brilliance was also a possibility. This was only Long Mu's conservative estimate. Long Chen's heavenly dragon body, even Long Mu was not too clear about his true strength. After all, Long Mu was currently not in Long Chen's body. Just when everyone thought that Long Chen's 4 rays of brilliance had caused a slight commotion, the domain steel lit up with a 5th ray of brilliance that did not reduce in the slightest. At this time, not only was translation everyone, even Shi Feng's translation steel, translation, and Chen Suyu stopped when they saw these 5 rays of brilliance. Hai Qingling and the gloomy man's steel as steel. Long Chen's translation is. Long Chen finally understood the characteristics of the domain steel. To Long Chen, these 5 rays of brilliance were just the beginning. Long Chen condensed the domain power around him and once again poured it into the domain steel. Soon, the domain steel that lit up with 5 rays of brilliance reacted again. The 6th ray of brilliance. When the crowd saw the 6th ray of light that they hadn't seen for a long time, cries of surprise rang out from the surroundings. They actually surpassed the cries of Hai Qingling and the gloomy man from before. After all, they already knew the strength of Hai Qingling and the gloomy man, but they didn't know anything about Long Chen. And it was this person that they knew nothing about that caused the domain steel to light up with 6 rays of brilliance at this time. In other words, the power of the dragon chariot's domain was not inferior to the gloomy man's at all. At this time, Shi Feng was immediately stunned and speechless. He originally thought that he was a proud son of heaven. He did not expect that Long Chen, who appeared out of nowhere and was an ordinary person in his eyes, would surpass him, the leader of the rock tribe. Shi Feng looked at Long Chen's appearance and immediately began to recall the leaders of the top 10 tribes that he had met before. However, he did not have the slightest impression of Long Chen. The corners of Hai Qingling's mouth curled into a smile when she saw this scene. She looked at Long Chen with an increasingly suspicious expression. The gloomy man's expression was still the same, but the sharp feeling in his eyes was constantly exuding. Long Mu looked at these 6 rays of brilliance and was very satisfied. 6 rays of brilliance, which roughly meant that Long Chen really had the qualifications to be promoted to Hongmeng Tianjing. Moreover, it was a very big qualification. 60% probability, coupled with Long Chen's unique physique, it was not a problem to be promoted to Hongmeng Tianjing at all. While the crowd was crying out in alarm, Long Chen's expression didn't change at all. Furthermore, he didn't seem to have any intention of stopping. Seeing Long Chen's behavior, after exclaiming in surprise, they were a little confused. Could it be that he wants to activate the 7th ray of brilliance? How is it possible? Even Hai Qingling of the Blue Ocean tribe has 6 rays of brilliance. This unknown person can already activate 6 rays of brilliance at his limit. How can he activate 7 rays of brilliance? That's strong words. Since ancient times, every time a domain steel appeared in the polar region of Hongmeng, 4 rays of brilliance were rare. As for 5 or 6 rays of brilliance, they were very rare. 7 rays of brilliance had never appeared at all. It's easy to say, but not easy to do. I hope a miracle happens once and let me open my eyes. Just when these people were discussing, Long Chen's domain power poured into the domain steel. On the domain steel, a 7th ray of brilliance flashed. Just when everyone thought that they had seen wrongly, the 7th ray of brilliance suddenly appeared on the domain steel. It did not give people any time to react. Unprecedented, 7 rays of brilliance appeared in front of everyone's eyes just like that. At this moment, the scene froze and everyone was stunned. Long Chen alone had shocked everyone. The occurrence of such a situation had simply exceeded everyone's imagination. Who would have thought that Long Chen would be able to unleash 7 rays of light at the very beginning? If 6 rays of brilliance could be considered a peerless genius, then 7 rays of brilliance could be considered a peerless genius among peerless geniuses. Hai Qingling's expression was also slightly stunned. The gloomy man's face, which rarely showed any abnormal expression in 1,000 years, was also slightly surprised at this moment. Shi Feng's shame completely disappeared at this moment. After all, Long Chen had not only surpassed him, but also Hai Qingling and the gloomy man. In this case, it could be said that Long Chen's strength could no longer be compared to Shi Feng. Even Hai Qingling and the gloomy man could not be compared to him. Similarly, after Long Chen activated the seventh ray of brilliance, Long Chen did not intend to stop. Long Chen was very clear about his strength. Although the seventh ray of brilliance had proved himself, Long Chen's full strength was far from this. Long Chen was confident that he could light up the seventh ray of brilliance before the exclamations had even died down. Chapter 1795. Looking at each other in dismay, page 1/1, Long Chen started to condense all the energy in his body, preparing to pour all of his domain energy into the domain pillar. Long Chen had absolute confidence that if his domain energy completely entered the domain pillar, the eighth ray of light would be very light. And it was easy to lift. Look closely. Most exine greater than over equal to zhuang syllable greater than over equal to 100 degree greater than over equal to if a greater than over equal to a product greater than over equal to book greater than over equal to net. The surrounding people looked at Long Chen, who didn't stop at all. Each and every one of them was looking forward to what would happen next. Although the 7 rays of light were already traces, they still wanted to see if there would be more after seeing the traces. The blood of the gloomy man released his mind. While Long Chen was concentrating on mobilizing the power of his domain, the gloomy man had already figured out Long Chen's strength. Long Chen's performance had indeed caught the gloomy man's attention. To him, since Long Chen had such great talent and potential, if he could not be a friend, then he naturally could not be an enemy. Just as Long Chen was about to pour all of his domain power into the Yin domain steel, Long Chen suddenly felt a burst of Hong Meng power hit him. Although it was neither painful nor itchy, it was enough to catch Long Chen's attention. Long Chen quickly diverted some of his attention to search for the source of the Hong Meng energy. The one who used the Hong Meng power to attack Long Chen was none other than Long Mu. Long Mu was not like Long Chen. At this moment, Long Chen's mind was completely focused on the domain tablet. Naturally, he was unaware of what was happening in the outside world. However, as a bystander, Long Mu could see everything clearly. Long Mu sized up the gloomy man and immediately knew that this gloomy man seemed to want to harm Long Chen. Long Mu realized that something was wrong and quickly notified Long Chen. The moment Long Chen saw Long Mu, he understood Long Mu's meaning. Long Mu was reminding Long Chen not to be too ostentatious and to try to hide his edge. This place was not the spirit realm ruins where Long Chen and Long Mu were. Long Chen's every action would be seen by others. Today, Long Chen had successfully activated the light. In less than an hour, everyone in this gathering place would know about it. Otherwise, everyone would know about this matter. At that time, many unnecessary troubles would follow one after another. Looking at Long Chen's appearance, he was actually preparing to attack the overbearing light. Could it be that he really felt that this matter was not big enough? Long Chen reacted for a moment and felt that he had become a little arrogant. He turned around and looked at the people around him. Long Chen had a vague feeling of discomfort in his heart. Although the feeling of being the center of attention could give him great satisfaction, it was still not enough. However, Long Chen did not feel at ease. Thinking of this, Long Chen decisively withdrew the condensed domain power in his body. In the domain steel, there were only 7 lights left. However, even if there were only 7 lights, it was enough to shock everyone. Long Chen withdrew his strength and slowly retreated. In the domain steel, the unprecedented 7 lights dimmed. At this moment, Shi Feng's face trembled slightly. He looked at Long Chen and felt that it was a little better. Hai Qingling also stared at Long Chen. No one knew what she was planning with her bright eyes. The gloomy man smiled slightly. Perhaps he was thinking of some plan. Everyone looked at Long Chen in a daze. It was as if they were looking at a mascot. Hua Zhan was shocked. He looked at Long Chen, who was walking towards him, and said slowly, "Brother Long Chen, I didn't expect." Long Chen laughed and said, "Don't be so excited. This kind of thing is not worth mentioning." Hua Zhan nodded. He also understood Long Chen's meaning. The stronger one was, the more one had to learn to be humble. Long Chen looked at Long Mu in the distance. The two looked at each other and smiled. They nodded at the same time. After that, Long Chen whispered to Long Yuan and Hua Zhan, "I'm afraid that I can't stay here any longer. There might be trouble here. I'll leave first. After you're done with the test, come find me. Remember, let Hua Lei and Hua Yan have a try. Tell me the results later." After saying that, without waiting for Long Yuan and Hua Zhan to reply, Long Chen quickly shuttled through the crowd and left the flat ground. Long Chen knew that if he did not leave, there would be people coming to find trouble with him. The gloomy man and his group looked at Long Chen's departing figure. Several leaders looked at each other for a while. Each of them had their own plans. After Long Chen left, some time. Sogu's website. Chapter 1796. At this time, the gloomy man approached Shi Feng and whispered, "Shi Feng, are you confident in finding out the origin of these people?" Shi Feng shook his head and said, "I don't have any impression of them. They probably just came to the extreme north of the small spirit world recently. They should have been mingling in the spirit world ruins in the south. It seems that these people's strength is not bad. We really need to find out more about them. Leave this matter to me." The gloomy man nodded and said, "Perhaps they are also here for the trade fair. Their background is another matter. We must find out their purpose of coming here." Shi Feng's eyes were like torches. After Long Yuan withdrew, he said to Hua Lei and Hua Yan, "You two go up and try. Master said that simply activating the domain power in your body will not cause you any harm." Hua Lei and Hua Yan looked at each other. Hua Lei took a step forward and walked toward the domain tablet. When Flowerbud activated her own domain power, before she could use it on the domain steel, a shocking scene occurred. On the domain tablet, the moment Hua Lei activated her domain power, 5 rays of brilliance lit up. Everyone's expression could no longer be described with words. It was too shocking. Hua Lei was also shocked by the sudden brilliance. For a moment, she panicked. The domain power condensed in her body dissipated just like that. The 5 rays of brilliance on the domain tablet dimmed. Hua Lei quickly returned to Hua Zhan's side. Hua Zhan never thought that Hua Lei's potential was so strong. Originally, Hua Zhan thought that Hua Lei's potential was at most 5 rays of brilliance. However, he saw clearly that Hua Lei could make the domain tablet light up with 5 rays of brilliance. This was only the beginning. Hua Lei did not pour the domain power in her body into the domain tablet. In other words, Hua Lei's true potential was far from this. After all, Hua Lei had difficulties in mobilizing the Hong Meng around her. Since she was able to test the strength of his domain power, it was not good for her to be too conspicuous. Hua Lei looked at Hua Zhan and Hua Yan and hurriedly said, "Brother, I feel that there are already people watching us." Hua Zhan nodded and said, "Don't panic. This is the gathering place, and the Blue Cloud tribe, the leader of the 10 great tribes, is here. I think there won't be any accident." Long Yuan's face was solemn as he said, "I don't think so. Let's leave quickly." Hua Lei and Hua Yan have the same physique, so the amount of light they can activate should be roughly the same. Hua Yan doesn't need to go up. In short, we can't continue to stay here. Hua Zhan was a little helpless as he said, "However, after what happened just now, almost everyone's attention has been placed on us. Even if we leave now, it is likely that quite a number of people will follow us all the way. Hearing this, Long Yuan frowned and could not help but look at Long Mu in the distance. At this moment, Long Mu was standing in the crowd. When he saw Long Yuan's gaze, he understood Long Yuan's difficulties. What's more, Hua Zhan and the others had some unspeakable connections with the rock tribe. If they were really recognized, perhaps there would be some unnecessary trouble. Just as Hua Zhan and Long Yuan were pondering, Shi Feng came to them personally. Shi Feng cupped his fists at Long Yuan and said, "Friend, I am Shi Feng, the leader of the rock tribe. I see that you are all very talented, and your companion who left before is even more amazing. I wonder if I have the face to make friends with you. In this small spirit world, we can take care of each other." Long Yuan did not know how to reply for a moment. After thinking for a while, he said, "It's just luck. We are purely blind cats that met a dead mouse." When Shi Feng heard this, the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. Everyone knew that under the test of the domain pillar, what was reflected was the power of the domain of the Hong Meng Yuan Jie experts. The power of the domain just so happened to prove the comprehensive strength of the Hong Meng Yuan Jie expert. On a certain level, it also reflected the probability of the Hong Meng Yuan Jie experts being promoted to Hong Meng Tianjing. The talent of Long Yuan and the others was actually able to make the domain pillar light up more than 5 times consecutively. In Shi Feng's view, it was clear that Long Yuan and the others had not used their full strength. With such a comparison, it really showed how terrifying the strength of Long Yuan and the others were. However, since Long Yuan replied like this, in Shi Feng's view, he naturally understood that Long Yuan did not have the intention to be friends with him at all. Shi Feng quickly changed the topic and said, "Friend, as far as I know in this gathering place, you have not been here before. I think you must have come here recently. Then, in the gathering place, the Green Cloud tribe is preparing to hold a trade fair. You must have some things that you like." Long Yuan could not help but feel a little troubled. If it were any other time, Long Yuan would have already run away. But now, Long Yuan had Hua Lei and Hua Yan, 2 people who could not use the power of Hong Meng, beside him. Naturally, he had to be careful. Long Yuan seemed to casually nod his head in response to Shi Feng's words. Shi Feng smiled slightly and said, "If there are any treasures that you like, why don't you let me know now? In the future, at the trade fair, we can avoid hurting our friendship because of some things." Long Yuan was really tired of this Shi Feng's natural expression of familiarity. His words were extremely flattering, praising Long Yuan to the heavens and hurting their friendship. Long Yuan wanted to ask in his heart, "Since when did I get to be friendly with you?" However, due to the power behind Shi Feng, as well as Hai Qingling and the gloomy man watching covetously from the side, Long Yuan could not do anything no matter what. At this time, he could only hope that Long Mu would be able to help Long Yuan get out of this trouble. After Long Mu understood tacitly, he passed through the crowd and walked to the front of the domain pillar. After Hua Lei, there were also many people who went to check the domain power that they brought. However, most of them only had 3 rays of brilliance, so the crowd did not have much interest. Long Mu looked at the domain pillar in front of him and smiled slightly. Then, he placed his palm on it. The domain power around his body, or rather, the energy of the golden firmament pellet, was condensed. At this moment, Long Mu's mind was connected to the domain pillar, and he poured all of his energy into it. For a moment, everyone on the plain was dumbfounded. 10 rays of brilliance. The brilliance of the brilliance was like the stars in the night sky, shining brightly in everyone's eyes. At this moment, everyone did not know what to say or what expression to make. Hua Zhan was still in shock. Long Yuan pulled him and quickly escaped with Hua Lei and Hua Yan. Chapter 1797. Night fell once again in the small spiritual world. Long Chen and his group were now sitting in a circle in the simple wooden house that they had found before. They were carefully on guard. During the day, they went to the domain pillar to test their domain power. In Long Chen's opinion, it was almost the worst decision he had made since he entered the small spiritual world. Because of their strong talent, it really attracted too much attention. Now, almost everyone in this gathering place knew that there were 7 people, each with strong talent and strength. There was even a monster who could make the domain pillar light up with 10 rays of brilliance. Long Chen looked at Long Mu, who had a helpless face, and could not help but nod. Things were really like what Long Mu had said before. If he went to test his domain power, either no brilliance would appear, or there would be 10 rays of brilliance, which had never been seen before. This was not surprising. After all, Long Mu now had the strength of Hong Meng Tianjing, but he had no choice but to suppress his strength to Hong Meng Yuanjie. This was also because Long Mu's physical body was growing too slowly. Long Chen and his group had burst out with such a strong potential. Naturally, they would attract some unnecessary trouble. Although Long Yuan and his group were very careful, they were still discovered by some people who secretly followed them into the wooden house. At this moment, Long Chen and his group were sitting in the wooden house. They could even feel that outside the wooden house, there were dozens of pairs of eyes staring at them almost without blinking. Hua Zhan was also worried. Hua Lei's domain power had attracted too much attention. Before he really obtained the falling flower divine jade, Hua Zhan naturally did not dare to reveal the true strength of his 2 sisters to the world. Hua Zhan said, "Brother Long Chen, I've seen your strength. However, the trade fair will only begin tomorrow night. During this period of time, won't it be slightly troublesome for us to attract the attention of others?" Long Chen nodded his head and said, "Indeed, this is something that I did not expect. However, there are some benefits to this. At the very least, those people only dare to secretly investigate outside. Due to the strength of those outside, it is likely that they will not do anything overboard. Although Hua Lei's talent is known by outsiders, they do not understand Hua Lei's true constitution. As long as we obtain the falling flower divine jade, we will directly head to the ancient battlefield. At that time, there will be no more trouble." Although Long Chen had advised him, Hua Zhan still had a worried look on his face. As an elder brother, this was the most important thing that his 2 sisters were about to face. There could not be any mistakes. Hua Zhan pondered for a moment and said, "Brother Long Chen, no matter what, I have seen your strength today. I agree to the matter that you asked me to think about. If you can really help my sister obtain the falling flower divine jade, it will not be a bad thing for them to acknowledge you as their master." When he heard this, Long Chen was happy. He hurriedly said, "I think you can also see that the reason why I propose to take Hua Lei and Hua Yan as my disciples is because of their talent. Moreover, I have many things to do in the future. It is impossible for me to take care of them all the time. When we leave this small spiritual world, we will have to go our separate ways. Before that, I will do my best to teach them." With these words, "I am relieved," Hua Zhan said emotionally. Hua Lei and Hua Yan did not say a word at the side. However, their expressions had already explained everything. What is there to be worried about? Don't forget that I am a peerless, ruthless person who can make the domain tablet pillar light 10 times. When Long Mu saw Long Chen's joy, he hurriedly came out to make fun of him. Long Mu glanced at Long Mu disdainfully and said, "What is there to be proud of? I am afraid that the people of the Ashen Cloud tribe have already seen through your secret. They know the reason behind your actions, so they did not pursue the matter. On the contrary, the few of us are the ones with true strength." At this point, Hua Zhan was still confused. He hurriedly asked, "I am still a little confused. Why can Brother Long Mu light up 10 times?" Long Chen laughed and explained, "Hua Zhan, you don't know. Long Mu's strength is originally Hong Meng Tianjing. However, due to some special reasons, he looks like a strong person from Hong Meng Yuan. The number of lights on the domain tablet pillar roughly reflects the probability of a strong person being promoted to Hong Meng Tianjing. Long Mu is originally from Hong Meng Tianjing. Naturally, he has a 100% probability, which is 10 lights. Hua Zhan looked at Long Mu in front of him in surprise and murmured, "Brother Long Mu is actually a strong person from Hong Meng Tianjing. I really did not expect this." Long Mu smiled modestly and said, "It's nothing. It's just that my talent is too amazing. I didn't work hard and accidentally became like this. I am really not worthy of your worship." Long Chen and Long Yuan at the side felt nauseous. Hua Lei and Hua Yan were grinning from ear to ear. It was also at this time that Long Mu, who was smiling, suddenly became serious. His whole body immediately burst out with a Hong Meng aura. He said sternly, "Who is it?" Long Chen and the others instantly became alert, and the emotions on their faces were instantly suppressed. Following Long Mu's gaze, there was actually a faintly discernible ball of Hong Meng energy at the door of the wooden house. It was condensing in midair. After Long Mu's voice fell, the ball of Hong Meng energy no longer concealed itself. After it slowly condensed, a figure appeared from within. This kind of magical technique really made people tremble in fear after seeing it. The figure that appeared was not a stranger. It was Shifeng, who had spoken to Long Yuan at the domain pillar earlier today. Shifeng looked at Long Chen and the others and smiled slightly. He said, "It's really impolite to appear in this way." Long Chen frowned and said sternly, "Shifeng, right? What business do you have here?" Shifeng's face also became a little gloomy. He said, "There is something that I really need to discuss with you." "What is it?" Long Chen felt that something was wrong. Shifeng said, "I wonder if you know of the Mountain Rock Tribe?" Hearing the words Mountain Rock Tribe, Long Chen roughly understood Shifeng's purpose. The Mountain Rock Tribe was a branch of the Rock Tribe. Since the Mountain Rock Tribe had been massacred by him, it was reasonable for Shifeng, the leader of the Rock Tribe, to come. However, Long Chen was curious. He had clearly killed everyone in the Mountain Rock Tribe, including Shifeng. None of the 7 people in the Mountain Rock Tribe survived. How did Shifeng in front of him know about him and the Mountain Rock Tribe? Chapter 1798. Long Chen thought for a while and figured it out. If Shifeng came to find them, it meant that he had absolute confidence. Since that was the case, Long Chen would be childish if he continued to hide anything. Long Chen said, "Are you here to denounce us?" Hearing Long Chen's admission, Shifeng put on airs and said, "You're straightforward. I have to say that you're really rude and unreasonable. Although the rules of this small spiritual world have always been lax, you can't ignore them completely. Since you killed the people of the Mountain Rock Tribe, as a member of the Mountain Rock Tribe, I have to come and demand justice. In the situation at that time, if I didn't kill them, they would have killed me. If I was the one who was killed, would you still come and demand justice?" Long Mu couldn't stand it anymore and hurriedly spoke up to support the situation. Shifeng coldly snorted and said, "Don't be anxious. Although the Mountain Rock Tribe and my Mountain Rock Tribe are of the same origin, we haven't had any real contact for a long time. Naturally, our relationship is a lot weaker. However, this time, Shifeng personally came to find us. As the only one who has some relationship with Shifeng in this small spiritual world, I naturally have to come and ask you." Then, after asking, "What do you plan to do?" Long Mu's expression was resolute and solemn. Shifeng smiled and said, "Today, your performances on the domain steel were all stunning, far surpassing mine. However, that was only the power of your domain. Your individual strength has nothing to do with the brilliance you displayed. I've already observed that all of you are only at the first level of the primordial origin realm. Let me remind you that there are more than a dozen people in my rock tribe, and the weakest among them is at the 5th level of the primordial origin realm. I don't mean anything by this, I just want to remind you that there is no way out of using violence in front of my rock tribe. Long Chen never thought that he would encounter the same situation as he had in the spiritual world ruins in a foreign place. Because of the difference in strength, he was despised by those who were weaker than him. Long Chen really had enough of this kind of life. What exactly are you planning? Long Chen had no intention of dragging things out with Shifeng. Since the matter had already been resolved, it would be best for them to have a clear solution. Shifeng nodded and said, as expected of someone who understands. In that case, I'll make things clear. Since you killed the people of our mountain rock tribe, you can pay with your lives. All of you can commit suicide to atone for your sins. That would be justice for Shifeng. Hearing this, the corners of Long Chen's mouth curled up into a sneer, but he did not comment on this. When Shifeng saw that Long Chen didn't reply, he continued, I don't think you'll be willing to accept this method, so I'll talk about the second method. Since you all have such talent, it's really unfair for you to act like this. How about you all come under my rock tribe and lead the way for my rock tribe in this small spirit world in the future? You may not know, but there will soon be a great battle in this small spirit world. It is your fortune to have caught the eye of my rock tribe. Shifeng's expression was arrogant and domineering, and his entire person seemed to be extremely inflated. Long Chen and Long Mu looked at each other and couldn't help but bitterly smile. Seeing that Long Chen didn't reply, Shifeng seemed to be a little embarrassed. He said loudly, I've already stated my conditions clearly. As for what you all think, it's none of my business. How about this? I'll come find you tomorrow morning. Give me an answer as well. With that, Shifeng turned around and was about to leave. Before Shifeng could take a step, Long Chen hurriedly called out to him and said, There's no need for tomorrow. I can give you an answer right now. Shifeng immediately turned around and saw Long Chen's gloomy and cold expression. This kind of expression was somewhat frightening and somewhat frightening. The corners of Shifeng's mouth trembled slightly as he said, What, you want to fight with me? As his voice fell, Long Chen nodded gently and said, That's right. The first choice you gave me is really too unbearable. No matter what, I'm still an expert of the Hong Meng Yuan Jia. It's really too shameful to commit suicide like this. Shifeng's voice became a little hoarse and trembling as he said, If you insist on your current actions, then you will soon realize that committing suicide to atone for your sins is the best outcome for you. I don't have any other shortcomings, but when I kill people, I must kill to my heart's content. Kill to your heart's content. Long Mu said loudly from the side, Then I'd like to see how you kill to your heart's content. Shifeng looked at Long Mu and frowned slightly. He said, Friend, why do I feel like you're the one who lit up the domain pillar's 10 rays of brilliance today? That's right. Long Mu agreed readily and said, It's me. As his voice fell, Shifeng's expression slightly froze. The atmosphere in the wooden house actually froze a little at this moment. Shifeng's eyes became a little dim as he said faintly, 10 rays of brilliance, isn't it a little ridiculous? I wonder what method Your Excellency used to light up the domain pillar's 10 rays of brilliance? Long Mu understood the meaning of Shifeng's words. Although Shifeng said that he didn't agree with Long Mu's true potential, he had already changed the way he addressed him from friend to Your Excellency. However, Long Mu wanted to show off to Shifeng, so he replied loudly, as expected of the leader of the rock tribe. It seems like you really have some tricks up your sleeve. You can actually see through the method I used. You're really amazing. Hearing such praise, Shifeng's originally cautious mood suddenly dropped. A blind cat caught a dead mouse. In Shifeng's heart, he praised his own foresight. Unknowingly, Shifeng's domineering attitude had returned once again. Long Chen and Long Mu looked at Shifeng's attitude and naturally felt that it was extremely ridiculous. The two of them used only words to toy with Shifeng like this. Thinking about it, it was clear that Shi Feng only had some talent and didn't have any brains. However, such a person could light up the domain pillar's 5 rays of brilliance. Compared to other people, it was really a little unfair. Shi Feng was now proud and said, "Then, what are you guys planning to do now?" Long Chen shook his head and said, "I've already said it very clearly. It's impossible for me, Long Chen, to die in vain like this. Moreover, it's also impossible for me to be your underling." Hearing this, Shi Feng's eyes flashed with killing intent. He said coldly, "Then you're courting death." Chapter 1799. Couldn't be better, page 1/1. The atmosphere in the wooden house froze once again. From time to time, a piercing pain would be felt in the air, as if there were blades floating around. Tasting book handphone Longchen stared at Shi Feng's eyes. Of course, he could also feel the powerful Hong Meng attacking aura bursting out from Shi Feng's body. At this moment, Shi Feng's body seemed to have formed a killing aura that constantly surrounded him. Every time Longchen tried to probe Shi Feng's strength, this killing aura would bombard Longchen's body. Let's put it this way. Ever since I entered the small spirit world, I have experienced many things like today. However, I am very lucky. Every time, I am the one who wins, and the people who fight with me, without exception, all of them have been defeated. Every single one of my opponents has lost to me, someone that they once looked down on. Before the battle, no matter how arrogant my opponent was, how desolate his expression was when he lost. Long Chen slowly said. Long Chen was not speaking in an arrogant manner. Instead, he was truly speaking what was in his heart. Just like what Long Chen had said, the difference in strength between all the battles that Long Chen had experienced was so great. However, Long Chen still managed to walk step by step. This kind of perseverance was enough to make everyone admire him. Forget it. Long Chen's experience had a huge element of luck. However, no matter what, this could be considered as Long Chen's own good fortune. A cold glint flickered in Shi Feng's eyes as he sternly said, "Then perhaps today your luck won't come again. This might also be the last place that you'll be in the small spiritual world." As his voice fell, the killing aura around Shi Feng's body condensed even more. "It is likely that everyone in this gathering place will gather once the two of us fight. However, this is just as well. It will save me the trouble of having so many people constantly watching me. In that case, using your life in exchange for my peace is really the best option." Long Chen released his mind and probed the people around the wooden house who were watching them. These people were only probing Long Chen's movements for the forces behind them. As for Long Chen, this move was to tell them that he, Long Chen, did not want to. Let's hope so. At this moment, Long Yuan took a few steps forward. He wanted to face Shi Feng together with Long Chen. Long Mu pulled Long Yuan back and lightly said, "Let him go by himself." Long Yuan frowned, but when he saw Long Mu's solemn expression, he could only let it go. Hua Zhan looked at Long Mu and Long Yuan's movements. His expression was still a little confused. Although Hua Zhan now knew the true strength of Long Chen and the others, Hua Zhan was still confused about Long Chen's true methods and true realm. Previously, when they fought against the Mountain Rock tribe, Long Chen only went to play for a while and did not use much of his strength. What Hua Zhan saw was Long Mu's strength. Then, since Long Chen was the leader of these three people, Long Chen's strength must be. Since Long Chen was the leader, his strength should be the highest. No matter what, based on their performance in the domain pillar, Hua Zhan firmly believed that the three people in front of him were the most dazzling existences in this small spiritual world. Even though Long Yuan retreated, he still released his Hong Meng power, ready to make a move at any time to prevent any accidents from happening to Long Chen. "Do you know my realm?" Shi Feng looked at Long Chen, who was about to make a move, and said faintly, "I'm at the 9th level of the Hong Meng Yuan Jie, and you're only at the first level of the Hong Meng Yuan Jie. Consider yourself lucky. With such a great disparity in strength, how can you deal with it? Shi Feng, we're not fools. Hong Meng Yuan Jie is not Hong Meng's consolidation realm or chaotic prime realm. How can we compare the strength of our realms? Hong Meng Yuan Jie's unique characteristic is the domain pillar. Only the power of the domain pillar can decide everything. My domain pillar can activate 7 rays of brilliance, while your domain pillar can only activate 5 rays of brilliance. If you use your domain pillar, you might have to rely on luck to defeat me. Humph. Shi Feng snorted coldly and said, Hong Meng Yuan Jie has never used their domain pillar in a battle. If they did, wouldn't it be a joke if 2 experts fought like cowards? It's a pity. Long Chen shook his head. Shi Feng frowned and said, What's a pity? Long Chen sighed and said with a smile, You clearly have a domain pillar that can activate 5 rays of brilliance. Sogu's website. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.